Just as the atmosphere solidified once again, a terrifying aura approached from a distance. Among them were numerous Tier 6 emperors, their strength surpassing even the forces of Kuei Organization and Guiling Island. The Elder's Palace. Not too late to the party, I see. You guys haven't started fighting yet? The newcomer sneered, hands crossed behind their back. Zhang Wuyang recognized the person. They were accompanied by a group of inheritors. Jian Wushuang didn't know many of the inheritors who appeared this time, but Feng Yu was present, also a Tier 5 peak-level emperor. Behind her, Jian Wushuang also spotted a familiar figure. Wan Xing, now truly an emperor already at the P-level of Tier 4. He had merged Dao, and he had indeed ascended to the rank of emperor. It wasn't surprising. Back then, the Wan Xing's origin source was nearly complete. Achieving the status of emperor in a few thousand years was normal. Peak level of Tier 4, and the speed was quite impressive. In terms of combat strength, he was probably not weaker than an ordinary Tier 5 peak-level emperor. Forget the introduction. 1 A.M. Situ Nan, Deputy Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall of the Elder's Palace. As soon as the words fell, not only Guiling but also several elders from Kuei couldn't help but inhale sharply. Lan Yu immediately explained the rumors to Jian Wushuang and Bai Junwang. The Enforcement Hall of the Elder Palace in the northern region of the Heavenly Realm had a horrifying reputation, especially its Deputy Hall Master, Situ Nan, who could be considered an executioner. In the past few thousand years, several major battles in the Heavenly Realm were led by Situ Nan, and numerous Tier 6 emperors fell at his hands, not to mention the many Tier 5 emperors. Powerful beings from the Shadow Sect in the Heavenly Realm dared not approach the northern region. They only stirred up trouble in the earthly realm. Even the Grand Yen Immortals dared not show themselves, fearing capture by the Enforcement Hall. Unbelievable! Jian Wushuang exclaimed in shock. He remembered that when he wag in the northern region of the Heavenly Realm, the Elder Palace was just the Elder Palace of the Yuanyang Lake. After he left, the Elder Palace took over the entire northern region and transformed within a few thousand years. Ironically, it was all because of him. Qi Shui, who wasn't afraid of Situ Nan, directly asked, "Situ, why are you here? Does your Elder Palace still find the treasures insufficient?" Haha. Who would complain about having too many treasures? Besides, you guys are too sneaky, following us here and leaving the others in the swirling sea. I can't tolerate that, and I had no choice but to bring Feng Yu and the others over, Situnin said, pointing at a group of unfriendly inheritors behind him. Feeling guilty, Qi Shui dared not look and turned away without saying anything. Seeing Feng Yu's defeat, Situnin sneered and continued, "You'll all have to thank me later." With that, he took out a small seal, approached a tombstone, gently placed the seal on it, and streams of light began to spread. Many people were astonished. Jian Wushuang, however, showed a hint of curiosity. As representatives of the Kuei Organization, they had followed the guidance of Xin Ling to this place and, by a stroke of luck, obtained the Blood Luo crystal. The people from the Elder Palace obtained the key to open the relic without any prior conditions, and they were the last to arrive. The Elder Palace. That was the direct lineage of Zhen Ling. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. One side was Zhen Ling, and the other was Xin Ling. Both were people not to be trifled with. He felt like he was just a pawn in the game. How did that cave mansion end up in the swirling sea? Why were he and Bai Junwang so lucky? There seemed to be someone behind all this, manipulating events in the shadows. As the light flowed, Jian Wushuang was blown away by the air current, feeling a bit dizzy. The ones in the front were still those Tier 6 emperors. This time, Jian Wushuang didn't seek the limelight but stood quietly at the back. Glancing at Gong Miaoi, he revealed a faint smile. Originally thought to be in control of others' destinies, he realized he was just a pawn as well. Ahead, Bai Junwang, with his neck pulled forward, looked like he was eager to enter, which made Jian Wushuang find it amusing. Being used and still putting in so much effort. Who were they fighting for? Enthusiasm instantly dropped, falling to the lowest. However, there were still 10 Tier 5 peak-level emperors following Bai Junwang, responsible for protection. Jian Wushuang followed a certain aura, shifting his gaze to the two individuals standing at the very back. It's him. Jian Wushuang was somewhat surprised. One was a robust man with a bare upper body, wearing peculiar long pants, and the other was a middle-aged man with white speckled hair. Both were Tier 5 emperors, with the bare-chested one being at Tier 5 peak level, exuding a powerful aura. Bukuin. Both the father and son are here. Having encountered them once at Xianxia Palace, Jian Wushuang found their origin source quite unique, leaving a deep impression on him. Unexpectedly, he encountered these two here. Ahead of them was someone he hadn't met before, but someone he had been longing for. Luo Sha, the crown prince of the Mo Luo kingdom, accompanied by several powerful individuals, a total of 8 Tier 5 emperors with varying levels of strength. Jian Wushuang glanced at his demeanor. Superficially, it was hard to discern, but the power contained within matched the beast god weapon on Jian Wushuang's body. It was the arm of the candle dragon. Perhaps because Jian Wushuang had glanced at him, or because of the candle dragon aura emanating from Jian Wushuang, the Mo Luo crown prince, Luo Sha, also looked in Jian Wushuang's direction. The two locked eyes and nodded at each other. Jian Wushuang didn't want to reveal his intentions to avoid arousing suspicion, while Luo Sha felt that Jian Wushuang was extraordinary, surrounded by 10 Tier 5 peak-level protectors, a formidable force larger than his own. It was impossible to find such a force in the Western Sea. Perhaps it was the peak force of the Inner Sea or the descendant of a prominent figure from Tiannan. Such figures had vast backgrounds, standing confidently before everyone, clearly not ordinary people and not to be offended. Certainly not like his foolish brother. Interesting. Jian Wushuang chuckled inwardly. A person capable of commanding an army was indeed extraordinary. Although there was a slight difference in strength, it was not to be underestimated. Luo Sha had now broken through to the Tier 5. While Jian Wushuang had a record of killing Tier 5 emperors, the opponent he faced was too weak, lacking any eternal treasures and fighting alone. His aura was also weak, incomparable to Luo Sha. The arm of the candle dragon. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled. If he could collect more beast god weapons before the emerging the Tao, elevate it using the power of all things, there was a real chance his divine body could reach 50,000-fold. He could hardly imagine how strong his breakthrough would be. Perfected extreme Tao, ultimate sword Tao, and the divine body reaching an astonishing 50,000-fold. Once he achieved Tao merge, he would reach Tier 5. Then no one would be able to stop him. Things he dared not even think about before were becoming a reality in just a few thousand years at the Qixin Temple. Of course, this was also related to the Time Pavilion. He had practiced in the starry sky for countless years. Although there was no accurate record, he had experienced 100 epochs. It could also be considered a culmination of accumulated efforts. Since entering the great desolate wilderness until now, in just a few millennia, he had progressed from Immortal to the strength of slaying a Tier 5 emperor. It's worth noting that, in the original universe, the strongest were only Tier 5 emperors. This time, they opened a massive relic, a path to breakthroughs in the Tao of the Sword, and the extreme Tao lay ahead. He had to seize this opportunity. Jian Wushuang took a step and followed everyone through the dazzling entrance of a spatial gate. As they entered the relic, Hu Qing, who had already penetrated deep into the Western Sea, arrived at a desolate island guided by Xianxia. This island was inhabited by many mortals, making a living by fishing in the sea. The arrival of Master Hu Qing and his disciples earned the respect of the island's inhabitants. In the Inner Sea, there had always been a legend that the extreme of the Western Sea led to the Western Heaven, where a sacred Buddha existed. This time in the Inner Sea, Hu Qing also wanted to go to the Western Heaven for contemplation. However, halfway there, Xianxia suddenly sensed a trace of aura. Xianxia exclaimed, "Master, I can deduce that this aura is related to your Tao merge." Tao merge? Are you talking about Tao integration? Hu Qing was surprised. His trip to the Western Heaven was for Tao discussions. If he won, he would integrate his Tao. If he lost, he would return to the Grave God Mountain. But he hadn't expected that halfway through the journey, his disciple would deduce an opportunity for Tao integration in this place. However, there was still a vague scene of confusion about the Tao in his mind. "Did I make a mistake?" Hu Qing murmured. He was confident about everything until Xianxia appeared and shattered it all. The current Xianxia possessed the spirit of grass and wood, advancing in realm without any bottlenecks, surpassing him and becoming an emperor. With a wave of Xianxia's hand, the spirit of grass and wood transformed into a child, lying on her shoulders. The little one had a halo floating above its head, darting around Xianxia. "Little one, you've grown again." Xianxia teased the child with her fingers. Apart from her master, this was her second close relative. Upon seeing the child, Hu Qing also revealed a faint smile and said, "Let's go and take a look then." The two of them disappeared on the small island. When they reappeared, they were outside a black hole in the depths of the sea. Hu Qing had reached perfection, both in cultivation and understanding of the space at the stellar level. He was well acquainted with black holes. "Right inside here," Xianxia pointed at the miniature black hole. Without hesitation, Hu Qing stepped forward and entered the black hole. Multicolored lights flashed around him. Hu Qing couldn't tell if he was moving forward or if these lights were rushing toward him from behind. "Master, I seem to sense an evil aura right in front of us." Xianxia's expression changed. The aura was familiar to her, reminding her of the puppet with the same essence. It had the same aura as the one who had killed her brother. Hu Qing's brow furrowed slightly. It was already miraculous enough for a black hole to appear in this place, and now there were people inside. The two individuals maintained their speed, if not accelerating. Almost there, just ahead. As they drew closer, a strange expression crossed Hu Qing's face. He found the aura quite familiar. Could it be? Until he saw the figure's back, Hu Qing was stunned. The silhouette was familiar, but there were slight changes in the aura. However, the sharpness of the sword qi confirmed everything. It was indeed Jian Wushuang. In this mottled and colorful space, the Jian Wushuang on the pathway was the same Jian Wushuang who had entered the black hole from the Mo Luo border. Hu Qing could spot Jian Wushuang, but Jian Wushuang's projection couldn't perceive Hu Qing. The spatial distance between them was considerable. Even though they could see each other, the actual distance was vast. Hu Qing also realized that approaching Jian Wushuang was impossible. "Brother Wushuang," Hu Qing shouted. But the Jian Wushuang ahead couldn't hear a thing. Xianxia's eyes showed hesitation, but in the end, she remained silent. Meanwhile, within the black hole, Jian Wushuang not only didn't hear Hu Qing's shout, but also remained oblivious to anyone approaching. He was still drifting, comprehending the mysteries within the black hole. Is this the universe? The scene Jian Wushuang's projection observed was entirely different from what Hu Qing saw. Upon entering the depths of the black hole, Jian Wushuang discovered that as he approached the source, he could comprehend the power of the universe. It was a realm higher than the black hole itself. The connection with the cosmic origin source had a peculiar similarity to when they had devoured the universe's origin source. "Master, we don't belong to the same universe as him. It's just that these black holes are born within the universe, creating a mutual link. Between universes, the space may be similar, but time is different." When they saw Jian Wushuang, it wasn't the current Jian Wushuang in this world. It was highly likely that it was Jian Wushuang from 1,000 years ago who came here. Hu Qing couldn't comprehend these rules. After staring blankly for a while, he gritted her teeth and rushed through the colorful boundary. Splash! The two entered the edge of an ancient battlefield. Xianxia's bright eyes showed a hint of joy. This is it. At the same time, the true body of Jian Wushuang, along with many other powerhouses, arrived at this ancient battlefield, with a considerable distance separating the two sides. Upon entering the ancient battlefield, everyone surveyed the surroundings. Ruins, the corpses of exotic beasts scattered everywhere, damaged golden skeletons, and even colorful skeletons. There were also numerous discarded weapons, such as long swords, war hammers, and cold spears, all of which had long lost their former power and turned into scrap metal. The sight was shocking. Even Bai Junwang, who had broad knowledge, couldn't help shaking his head. The fallen ones on this ancient battlefield were emperors, and not just any emperors but powerful ones. In such a vast battlefield with countless corpses, how many powerhouses had fallen? No one knew. Even the treasures had lost their luster, indicating that this battlefield might date back to ancient times. Suddenly, a Tier 5 emperor exclaimed, "It's a supreme eternal treasure." Then, swiftly and decisively, he tried to pull it from one of the corpses. "Don't move!" Bai Junwang roared, but it was already too late. The corpse that was being pulled, its originally dim eyes suddenly began to flicker. 1, 2, 3. Countless corpses instantly came alive. Even a peak-level Tier 6 emperor couldn't help but find the scene shocking. Strange corpses slowly rose, roaring in a language unfamiliar to all of them. Even more peculiar was that these corpses didn't attack them, but instead rushed towards the depths of the battlefield. This relieved the group. Gue Ling and the others had never witnessed such a scene. They were almost ready to take action. Fortunately, Bai Junwang stopped them. They stood amidst the gaps between those corpses, silently watching them charge into the fray. What immense willpower this must be, having fallen for countless years, yet their bodies were still charging into battle. Jian Wushuang was also puzzled. He walked to Bai Junwang's side and quietly asked, "Are these corpses followers of that Fuego or members of the Three Kings Court?" "They are not the heavenly lords of the Three Kings Court." Bai Junwang shook his head and continued, "The Three Kings Court once recruited numerous heavenly lords, that is, emperor-level powerhouses. However, these corpses have a different aura from those heavenly lords." The heavenly lord. It was a cornerstone force of the Three Kings Court. When Bai Junwang became a Tier 5 emperor, he had encountered the heavenly lord of the Three Kings Court. Their strength at the lowest was at the 5th tier. Their treasures emitted unique auras distinct from these corpses. The power emanating from these corpses carried a taint of soul force. This power made them uncomfortable. It was as if it devoured an evil force. "Let's watch and see what happens." Bai Junwang, accompanied by the people from Kuei, refrained from rash actions. Zhen Wuyang and the people from the Elder Palace, being fellow allies, had gathered together without any movement. Gue Ling, leading these miscellaneous troops, knew nothing and dared not act recklessly. They kept their eyes on Su Tunan of Elder Palace and Bai Junwang of Kuei. No one was foolish enough to attack those corpses at this time. Countless corpses surrounded them, and even a Tier 5 emperor might end up buried here. Crack! Standing beside his father, Broly threw a punch, shattered the skeleton of a corpse that had approached his father. The power of this punch was formidable, undoubtedly that of a Tier 5 peak-level combatant. No! Although Bukuin's strength was not up to par, he wasn't foolish. It was useless to try to stop them, as the nearby corpses had already turned their heads. Gue Ling also realized this and found that his disciple had attacked first. Without hesitation, he unleashed two powerful waves of energy, directly crashing near Zhen Wuyang and Bai Junwang. Instantly, they attracted numerous corpses, turning to besiege them. Bai Junwang cursed, "Damn it!" Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang had quietly retreated behind everyone, placing himself in the center. 10 Tier 5 peak-level emperors protected him, ensuring his safety. Boom! 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 The corpses launched a massive attack, and at this point, there was no one to blame. They had to withstand the assault first before figuring out what to do. "We can't stay here any longer." Zhen Wuyang's figure soared, looking into the distance. Surrounded on all sides, staying here would mean being worn down. Gue Ling and others had already shrunk their divine bodies and, slipping through the gaps in the corpses, began to flee. Resistance? Who had the courage to stay here and resist? Even if they could resist, there was no point in wasting their strength here. Killing these corpses brought no benefits whatsoever. There was even a risk of soul contamination. "Let's go too, follow Gue Ling." Jian Wushuang seized the opportunity, shouted to Bai Junwang, and also grabbed Gong Miaoi to escape together. With the escort of the cloak-wearing emperor guards, he could now focus entirely on running away. If they provoked those corpses, let the cloak-wearing emperors deal with it. This battlefield, neither too large nor too small, was comparable to several higher worlds. In the outside world, it could even match a cosmic mystery. Yet, with this distance, an emperor letting loose could escape within an hour. While escaping, Jian Wushuang's body also changed, turning into colorful bones like the corpses. His bones, however, were colorful. Soon, they escaped the vortex of the ongoing battle. The skeletons ahead were now just like them, rushing towards the depths of the battlefield. He wanted to see what was in the depths of the battlefield that compelled so many skeletons to charge recklessly. The unfortunate ones left behind were Zhen Wuyang, Situ Nan, and their group. The vortex of corpses was getting larger, making it difficult for them to break free. Situ Nan's avatar turned into a furious form spanning billions of miles, ruthlessly destroying those corpses, unmatched in its ferocity. With Situ Nan holding the rear, Zhen Wuyang and the others finally caught up. Damn it! Zhen Wuyang cursed all the way, catching up with the people from Guiling Island and killing enemies along the way, paying no attention to those Tier 5 emperors. This time, he had several disciples with him, including other Tier 6 emperors like Tianchan, whose subordinates, many Tier 5 emperors, were slaughtered by Zhen Wuyang. It was clearly an issue caused by Guiling, yet his people were taking the blame. Up ahead, in the depths of the battlefield, a majestic figure blocked their way. Bai Junwang, upon seeing that figure, drew in a cold breath and shouted, "It's a universe master! Scatter quickly!" Bai Junwang was familiar with that aura. He had seen a universe master. Although the figure before him had lost its original appearance, the aura remained unchanged. Die! This time they understood. The killing intent from the opponent warned them that advancing further meant certain death. Boom! A massive beam of light erupted, sweeping through all the powerful beings in a straight line. Whether skeletons or emperors like themselves, several Tier 5 emperors instantly fell, and a Tier 6 emperor had his divine body shattered, suffering severe injuries. It was the emperor from the Elder Palace at the rear. Moving slowly, he couldn't react in time and took a direct hit. On the contrary, the person at the forefront sensed something amiss and quickly evaded. Phew! Jian Wushuang's back was covered in cold sweat. If he had encountered that beam just now, he would undoubtedly be dead. Luckily, he was fast. At this moment, he dared not be careless. The beast god domain erupted silently, and his divine body began to ascend. The heavenly demon technique also reached its peak, and the divine body reached 40,000-fold. Anxious, Jian Wushuang asked, "What do we do?" Suddenly, everyone lost their composure, unsure of what to do. This time, the remnants exceeded the expectations of everyone present. Throughout the Earth Realm, or rather, the 4 great secret realms, such a powerful remnant had never appeared before. Even the Forest of Eternal Secrets from years ago didn't have the corpse of a universe master. If there were any, they would have been taken away long ago by the 4 great temples. However, Guiling and others showed joy on their faces. For all the Tier 6 emperors in the Earth Realm, or the 4 great secret realms, the pursuit was not the pinnacle but the remains of the universe master, which had long disappeared. Now, unexpectedly encountering the physical body of a universe master, even without the origin source, was enough. As long as they obtained this physical body of this universe master, they would be prosperous. Bai Junwang, in particular, looked on with envy. Among the people present, no one needed a physical body more than he did. Elder Qingmeng approached, holding a jade slip bestowed by Xinling, and handed it to Bai Junwang, saying, "Xinling has a command." Bai Junwang took it, and the inscriptions on it were understood only by him. After reading it, he directly crushed the jade slip, revealing a cold smile. The information on top was concise. Use Jian Wushuang's power of all things to suppress and seize the physical body of the universe master. Jian Wushuang, upon hearing Bai Junwang's instructions, was dumbfounded. Letting him, a Tao Lord, suppress the physical body of a universe master? If the other party didn't move, he would dare to try it. But now, not to mention him, even a Tier 6 peak-level emperor wouldn't dare to go. This is the greatest opportunity of my life. Jian Wushuang, if you help me once I ascend, I will share the entire Qixin temple with you. I will be your guardian. Bai Junwang made a promise. He truly wanted to restore his peak and even advance further. He had always followed the path of the divine body. Although the origin source had been restored, he knew little about practicing with the origin source. If he obtained the physical body of the universe master, he could tread the old path and break through with the divine body. With the dual cultivation of origin source, once he broke through, it was likely that no one could stop him. Neither Xinling nor Jinling Jian Wushuang hesitated. Facing the universe master directly, he dared not. The power of all things suppressed. He hadn't tried it. If there was no danger, he could give it a try, but now, seeing Jian Wushuang's hesitation, Bai Junwang immediately took action. He wanted to try. The majestic existence remained still, and the beam of light erupted from his eyes. He wanted to eliminate Jian Wushuang. Bai Junwang roared. With numerous divine bodies, he transformed into a figure as vast as the universe master and walked towards him generously. As the light column condensed, Bai Junwang flashed to the top, but the light beam continued to burst straight out. Come! Jian Wushuang gritted his teeth, not hesitating for a moment, and directly rushed up. Risking it all, he bypassed the straight line and rose into the air. Seeing Jian Wushuang, Bai Junwang revealed a fiery gaze and nodded. The others, watching these two, initially thought they were insane but quickly grasped the situation. Stop them! The universe master's physical body. A piece of flesh would be enough for them to comprehend, let alone the complete body. Not only Guiling and others but also Jin Wuyang, Qishui, and Tongtian burst forth. However, not everyone was equally fervent. Ultimate emperors pursued different goals, and it was normal. His cosmic secret technique was close to reaching completion, and the breakthrough wouldn't take long. From emperor to universe master, it was a qualitative change from space to time. The nature was different, and the difficulty of breakthrough could be imagined. Especially mastering the ultimate Tao of destruction. It required shattering the entire space and reshaping a timeline. And space existed within every moment of time. In the vast universe, as long as there was a breath of time, a space was established, carrying the universe's spatial dimensions. The people of Elder Palace approached. Seeing that Shang remained unmoved, they spoke. Not going forward to take a look? No need. It's useless for me. Let them fight. Shang shook his head. Situ Nan exclaimed. Not even helping? How could it be that easy? Shang's words had just fallen when the universe master's physical body indeed began to change. Guiling, who ran even faster than Jian Wushuang Bai Junwang, was directly smashed to pieces by a palm. After reassembling, Guiling no longer dared to approach. Bai Junwang sneered. Fool! To claim this physical body, the first step was to suppress it. Jian Wushuang's figure transformed into a black hole, releasing the power of all things. The familiar and longing force made the body constantly shrink, ultimately turning into a towering figure, finally starting to move its steps. Charged towards Jian Wushuang. Is this what they call suppression? Jian Wushuang was exasperated. This was clearly using him as bait, attracting the opponent to his side. The power of all things was a rare and precious origin source even in ancient times. It required the condensation of countless types of origin sources, and it had to be the ultimate origin source, just like the myriad origin sources. However, the myriad origin sources encompassed ordinary elements. The condensed power of all things had impurities. Only when the ultimate Tao converged could the pure power of all things within Jian Wushuang be condensed. He was not in the ancient times. Otherwise, he would have been worshipped as an ancestor in ancient times. A vast amount of power of all things scattered from the black hole and entered the universe master's body. Originally, he thought his origin source was robust, but as it continued to converge, he found that it couldn't stop and the effect was very weak. There was no way. The opponent was the universe master. Awakening this body was too difficult. Jian Wushuang was only a Tao lord. There wasn't enough power of all things to awaken a universe master. Bai Junwang didn't dare to delay. He directly abandoned the physical body, and the illusory shadow of his divine body rushed into the Universe Master's body. Just as he entered, he was shaken out by the protective consciousness of the body. Clearly, the body had not yet awakened. "Wait a little longer," Jian Wushuang roared, his brows furrowed. This time he staked his life to assist Bai Junwang. After this is done, it wouldn't be excessive to kowtow a few times in gratitude. Jian Wushuang once again condensed a massive power of all things, digesting up to 90% of his origin source throughout his body. He then invested it into the Universe Master's physical body. Bai Junwang advanced once again, holding his breath. But this time Zhen Wuyang and others came over. Qing Mang, Zhishan, and Lan Yu intercepted them. From a distance, Shang, who had abstained from intervening before, now took action. Initially, he refrained to allow personal cultivation opportunities, but now he assisted because someone was blocking the path of Zhen Wuyang and others. Not only him, but Situ Nan from the Elder Palace also made a move. How arrogant! The three elders fought desperately. They could resist just these three inheritors, but Shang and Situ Nan were not weak. Both were at the pinnacle of Tier 6, approaching Supreme Peak. Jian Wushuang didn't have much time to spare on these matters. He shouted, "Hurry and go in. They can't hold on for too long." Below, Bai Junwang was also decisive. The phantom of the divine body merged with the Universe Master's physical body. With a momentary gap as the physical body awakened, Bai Junwang seized the opportunity and entered. After Bai Junwang converging into the physical body, Jian Wushuang came to a halt. As soon as the eyes of the physical body opened, they slowly closed again. If the awakening truly happened, all of them would be finished. Exhaling, Jian Wushuang's aura suddenly plummeted, weakened to the extreme. Several cloaked emperors grabbed him and hastily retreated to recover their strength. Upon restoring the origin source, he frowned, realizing that Gong Miaoyi was missing. After scanning the surroundings, he found that she had already joined forces with the crown prince of the Mo Luo kingdom, Luo Sha. Damn it! He knew Gong Miaoyi was extraordinary, having the ultimate origin source within her. How could she be controlled? The opponent also possessed the Bloodfall Crystal, a treasure capable of activating relics, not to be underestimated. The Elder Palace had that small seal, and the Bloodfall Crystal had fallen into the hands of Guiling. Now the three elders of the Kuei were under siege, and the situation was dire. If these three elders couldn't hold their ground, they would face the danger of being eliminated. If they failed, it would all be in vain. Bai Junwang was currently integrating his physical body, unable to be of any assistance. His strength was too weak, and rashly joining the battle would lead to his demise. What to do? Jian Wushuang glanced at Guiling and the others. They were hurt by the Universe Master's physical body and dared not approach again. Just as he observed Zhen Wuyang and others in a confrontation, Jian Wushuang discreetly transmitted, "Island Lord, when a rabbit dies, the fox grieves. You know the situation. I've handed over Gong Miaoyi to you, but if you wait for them to settle scores with us, don't expect to survive either." Guiling, who was sitting cross-legged in the distance, was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Jian Wushuang. He had checked the strengths of the 5 emperors before entering. He also witnessed the release of the mysterious power that assisted Bai Junwang in entering the Universe Master's physical body. "Kid, stop the nonsense. I won't make a move unless you show some sincerity," sneered the Turtle Spirit Island Lord, attempting to provoke him. But it seemed the young one was too naive. Having lived countless epochs, he wouldn't be easily manipulated by a mere youngster. Jian Wushuang was unwilling, saying, "I can't promise you with this physical body alone. As long as you help me get through this difficulty, we can form an alliance. Don't bother with empty words." Guiling impatiently shook his head. But Jian Wushuang truly couldn't come up with the sincerity they sought. He couldn't just kill Gong Miaoyi now. Even if he did, the Bloodfall Crystal would fall into the hands of the other party, making things even more advantageous for them. Jian Wushuang was growing anxious. Qing Mang and the others couldn't hold on for too long. They were already injured. Being able to quickly break through Qing Mang and the others surprised even Gui Ling's group. However, if they intervened, they wouldn't gain anything and might even offend the inheritors. Even if they didn't offend now, when it came to competing for treasures later, clashes were inevitable. Just as Jian Wushuang had suggested, forming an alliance would be better. Yet he was unwilling. The Turtle Spirit Island Lord was also conflicted, taking the initiative to propose, "Kid, as long as you can guarantee that half of that body belongs to us, I'll make a move with my people." "Island Lord, I can only guarantee that 1/10 is yours. I have no control over the rest." Jian Wushuang coldly smiled, and the other party fell for it. If his words could be trusted, he wouldn't have provoked so many enemies. Gui Ling frowned at first, but upon hearing that only 1/10 belonged to him, meaning he alone could get a share, he became intrigued. Turning to look at the people beside him, he couldn't help but furrow his brows. What to do with this group of people? Fuck it. Qing Mang and the others were on the verge of falling. If he didn't make a move now, even that 1/10 would be gone. If the inheritors got hold of it, they wouldn't have any chance at all. "Everyone, it's time to make a move. These individuals have fallen, and the next to fall might be us. How about forming an alliance with them? We can obtain the Universe Master's physical body, and everyone can gain insights. This is what I've fought for you. Give it some thought," said Gui Ling with a sudden sense of righteousness. Tianchan was somewhat incredulous. This old Turtle Island Lord unexpectedly had such awareness. Early on, he also felt the need to take action, understanding the principle that when one dies, others mourn. The strengths of Qing Mang and the others were not weak. If these people were to fall, disputes would inevitably arise later, and they would be the ones to die. Take action, delay them. Seeing no one objecting, Gui Ling took the lead. In his heart, he sneered at these people's foolishness. This was also why Jian Wushuang didn't seek out others. As long as a tiny benefit was offered, it could prompt them all to take action. As for the 1% of the physical body, it didn't matter. After Bai Junwang merged, he could cut off a piece and give it to the other party. By then, Bai Junwang's strength would soar, and he could do without it. But these people still had their uses, so giving it to them wouldn't hurt. "You rotten shrimps and fish! How dare you obstruct me!" Qishui transformed his body into 7 colors and punched open the true form of Tianchan. The majestic toad swelled up, then let out a thunderous roar. Ribbit! Spurt! The magnificent avatar of Jin Wuyang punched out, dimming the heavens and earth. Just a moment ago, with the help of Shang and Situ Nan, it was relatively easy to defeat Qing Mang and others. However, after the involvement of Gui Ling, it became much more challenging. Especially now, with countless skeletons surrounding them, every attack required careful calculation to avoid hitting those bones. If it weren't for the intimidating presence of the Universe Master's physical body, the skeletal army would have already overwhelmed them. Zhen Wuyang watched as these people cursed in anger. "You fools! What has the other side offered you? TSK, even if there were no benefits, I wouldn't let you inheritors take everything. This is a legacy belonging to the powerful beings of our realm. Why should it all be given to you?" The words stung the hearts of the Elder Palace people. For a moment, everything came to a halt. Tongtian Buddha grew impatient and turned to Situ Nan, saying, "Situ, what are you doing?" The Universe Master's physical body burst forth with a powerful origin source aura, the very same origin source that Jian Wushuang had refined. This indicated the success of Bai Junwang. "Ha ha!" Maniacal laughter echoed, forcing everyone back. Bai Junwang's eyes were icy, and he slowly stood up. "You guys..." However, Jian Wushuang felt an ominous sensation and slowly began to retreat. The origin source was crafted by him, and he understood Bai Junwang better than anyone else. The laughter just now didn't sound like Bai Junwang. "Damn it!" Bai Junwang spoke again, uttering the last few words before launching into an indiscriminate assault, directly killing Qing Mang and Lan Jishan, severely injured, stayed at the back to assist, narrowly escaping death. Shang also sensed a hint of danger and shouted, "Quick! Retreat!" Immediately, his figure appeared in front of Jin Wuyang and the others. Destruction. A black lotus blossomed, emanating a terrifying aura that swept across the entire battlefield. Shang turned to look at the others, urging, "Hurry! Leave this place. I'll hold them back with my avatar." Then, with concern, he added, "Situ Nan, don't forget your duty. Protect them and lead them away." "Don't worry." Situ Nan directly grabbed Jin Wuyang and others, bypassing Bai Junwang. Gui Ling was momentarily stunned, wanting to ask Jian Wushuang what was happening. Why kill their own people? However, when he turned around, there was no trace of Jian Wushuang. He had already fled. While fleeing, he didn't forget to pull along several cloaked emperors and elder Zhishan. Jian Wushuang possessed the power of all things, capable of restoring their combat strength. Alone, he had no chance of surviving in this place. Facing the Black Lotus, Bai Junwang was somewhat surprised and exclaimed, "Cosmic secret technique. Whether inherited or self-created, it's quite interesting." Crash! The Black Lotus bloomed, and Shang stood atop it, his aura rising to the supreme peak level. "I seek guidance." Shang remained calm, aware that he was not a match. Still, he was just an avatar, and his demise wouldn't be a big deal. This encounter was not in vain. Unexpectedly, he encountered a universe master. At this moment, Bai Junwang was no longer in control. Jian Wushuang realized he was tricked. Both he and Bai Junwang were manipulated by Xinling. Refining the origin source, searching for the physical body. Everything was a diversion, all for the resurrection of the universe master before them. Jian Wushuang fell into a trap and was now desperately fleeing. Bai Junwang, on the other hand, met his end. A thorough demise this time. "Remember the name Fuego. You have the privilege of knowing who killed you." Fuego activated a strand of origin source, reveling in the experience. This origin source, like Frelesa told him, was powerful but not as formidable as before. Nevertheless, it was sufficient. He could revive himself, and that was enough. Shang stood on the Black Lotus, eyes glinting with determination. "Regardless of who you are, in today's battle, I will give it my all." Good. No one knew what happened in this battle, only the image of a lotus forever imprinted in this space. Visible from a great distance. The power of destruction obliterated everything. In the time and space river outside the Qishan temple, Shang, having dealt with a supreme peak-level ancient beast, obtained a massive fruit, a treasure guarded by the beast for countless epochs. He crushed the fruit, letting the power of destruction envelop him, gaining even more strength. Frelesa, ancient creature, interesting. Then, he took out a jade slip and transmitted a message. "Zhenling, I'm returning to the 4 great secret realms." His true self wanted to personally test it out. The battle just now wasn't satisfying enough for his avatar. Having traversed this time and space river for thousands of years, it held no interest for him. The ancient beast he just killed was already the strongest being in this time and space river, yet it felt weaker than the Azure Dragon Temple Master. He had clashed with the masters of the 4 temples. Now, with Frelesa's appearance, it rekindled his vast power of destruction, perhaps aiding him in breaking through. In the Earth realm, in the Western Sea, and within, Jian Wushuang had led his people to the edge of the battlefield. Strangely, the area was spacious, yet the corpses dared not approach. "What's going on?" Elder Zhishan looked at Jian Wushuang with confusion. Clearly, he felt that Jian Wushuang knew. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said, "We've been manipulated." By Junwang? Even at this moment, Elder Zhishan didn't dare to say they were manipulated by Xinling. The brainwashing is too severe. "Yes, it's him. He schemed against us." Jian Wushuang mocked in his heart but nodded on the surface. Only this way could he continue to have Elder Zhishan listen to him. He dared not speak a single bad word about Xinling. Otherwise, if the Universe Master didn't kill him, the Elder Zhishan would. Elder Zhishan was full of anger, cursing Bai Junwang. Phew! Jian Wushuang turned to look at the battlefield, feeling uneasy. The feeling of being manipulated by someone was unpleasant. He still remembered the gaze Bai Junwang pleaded with him, now completely fallen. Zhishan, since Bai Junwang has betrayed us, you should join me. The tasks assigned by Lord Xinling must be continued. Jian Wushuang also started coaxing Elder Zhishan to become his pawn. There was no choice. In this place, he needed every Tier 6 Emperor as his backer, or he would be helpless. The battlefield was in chaos, and it was impossible to leave. Elder Zhishan contemplated for a moment and said, "Young master, rest assured, Lord Xinling has instructed that, no matter what happens, we must obey young master and Bai Junwang's orders. Now that Bai Junwang has betrayed, I will naturally follow you, young master." "Good." Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up and continued, "You can rest assured. I came here seeking some treasures for Lord Xinling. Apart from those, all other treasures will be owned by you, Elder Zhishan." After taking control of Zhishan, Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief. Now he had a top-notch Tier 6 Emperor by his side. The few remaining Tier 5 peak-level Emperors who were still alive were useless. They could only be used as human shields. The most crucial thing now was how to leave or enter the depths of this ruin. Boom! A burst of light flashed and appeared ahead. Jian Wushuang paused for a moment, hesitating. The place was so quiet that even the corpses dared not invade. He couldn't decide whether to go in or not. While he hesitated, Zhen Wuyang and the others had already escaped from the battlefield and rushed towards the depths of the light without any hesitation. With determination, Jian Wushuang led his followers up. At this point, he wasn't afraid of these people, just afraid of not having someone alive by his side. Worst-case scenario, he'd reveal his identity. With Bai Junwang fallen, he could completely clear his name. Following Zhen Wuyang, he returned to Grave God Mountain openly and in the light. "Let's go!" With Elder Zhishan and several cloak-clad emperors, they followed behind Zhen Wuyang. Behind them were also Guiling and others. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, an even more powerful force erupted. It seemed that Shang clashed with the Universe Master. Considering Shang's strength, even using cosmic secret techniques, he was by no means a match, at most delaying for a while. Although Jian Wushuang didn't know much, he understood the significance of the Universe Master. It was a dazzling existence even in ancient times, something an emperor couldn't contend with. Now, almost all surviving cultivators had left the battlefield, rushing towards the Silent Mountain Range. Silent Ridge, the source of the radiance. Zhen Wuyang and others had long arrived at this place. Seeing these people stand still without any movement, Jian Wushuang was puzzled. This wasn't Zhen Wuyang's style. Normally, when these people encountered opportunities, they would have already rushed forward. They couldn't possibly be this calm. Jian Wushuang didn't dare approach, fearing potential danger. Gazing at the radiance, Jian Wushuang made out two figures. A man and a woman. It was Hu Qing and Jiang Shang. "Why is he here?" Jian Wushuang exclaimed, surprised. There were no signs of these two when he arrived. How did they appear? Could it be that Xinling opened a back door and let them in? It's not entirely impossible. There have been precedents in the original planet, where inheritances were bestowed in front of many trial takers. If they could open a small opening and let Hu Qing in, it shouldn't be difficult. Indeed, the chosen ones were different. If it weren't for Bai Junwang back then, he wouldn't have been inferior to Hu Qing. He then looked at himself now. Such a sorry state. He couldn't even claim to be an inheritor. He was played by Xinling, first refining the origin source for Bai Junwang, then running here eagerly, and ultimately becoming someone else's stepping stone. He resurrected an ancient being, and Bai Junwang also perished. What a mess! Both supremely intelligent individuals, ultimately played by someone elusive. If he hadn't run fast, he might have been taken as well. The fact that the other party could quietly kill Bai Junwang and seize the origin source probably meant they also knew about him. The limitless power of all things within him. It was like a moving treasure trove. That bald monk inside seems to be merging the Tao. Elder Zhishan observed for a while, realizing that things were peculiar. He continued, "How could there be an insect like a Tao Lord in this place? And he's even integrating the Tao. Jian Wushuang felt uncomfortable hearing this, but he couldn't say much. But the mention of merging Dao was particularly grating. Even Hu Qing had merged Dao. That little novice who once clung to him also merged the Dao. However, it wasn't too surprising. Back then, stepping into the Dao and now reaching the perfection stage, it was only natural to merge Dao. If successful, he would become the ultimate emperor. Moreover, a Tier 5 ultimate emperor in one step. His combat power was probably not weaker than a 6-stage emperor. Wuliang Buddha, even at the Tier 4 level, could oppress and beat a Tier 5 emperor. Once Hu Qing successfully merged the Dao, he would be an ultimate emperor at Tier 5. He would be capable of beating even a Tier 6 emperor. He would at least be comparable to a peak-level Tier 6. From a distance, Guiling and others descended. Seeing that the crown prince of the Mo Luo nation was still alive, Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief. There must be great opportunities here. Follow me and charge in. Simple. Brutal. They just went straight for it. However, before they could charge in, Situ Nan and Tongtian Buddha blocked their way. Tongtian Buddha sneered and shouted, "Who dares to take a step forward?" Situ Nan's aura was also rising. Although Shang was no longer there, the strength of these people should not be underestimated. It was not easy for Guiling to kill his way in. When necessary, Zhen Wuyang and Qishui would also make their move. They were all inheritors. Everyone, isn't this a bit too overbearing? For the sake of a little guy, you want to give up such an opportunity. Guiling had not yet discovered the person among them related to the inheritors. He thought these inheritors were crazy. They were leaving opportunities untouched and watching others merge the Dao. Situ Nan coldly replied, "Island Lord Guiling, this person is the inheritor of the Grave God Mountain, and he's only a Dao Lord. If anyone dares to disrupt his opportunity, Grave God Mountain, Elder Palace, and the temple will not let you go. You better think it over." Guiling, standing still, had an unsightly expression, frowning. This was not just a scare. He was genuinely a bit afraid. He hadn't expected these people to bring a Dao Lord in with them. Giving such a huge opportunity to a Dao Lord was quite unreasonable. Beside him were numerous disciples and onlookers. The Turtle Spirit Island Lord, undeterred by the potential loss of face, calmly said, "Since he's a Dao Lord, so be it. What's so great about a Dao Lord's inheritance? I want to see if he can break through." Virtuous. Tongtian Buddha sighed in relief. Hu Qing was in a state of union with the Dao. This was a monumental event, especially for a Dao Lord. Union with the Dao meant transcending life and even space itself. Not to mention engaging in combat. Even a surge of energy could potentially sever the heavenly path. So, if one could avoid battle, it was best to do so. If Hu Qing's union with the Dao were delayed, no one would be able to bear the consequences. This was the ultimate Dao Lord among the Dao Lords on Grave God Mountain, ranking in the top 3. Moreover, he had cultivated the ultimate Dao to perfection. It's important to note that reaching perfection in the ultimate Dao was a tremendous challenge. Once successful, it surpassed those who had not achieved perfection by more than just a single level. On Grave God Mountain, most ultimate Dao Lords were around the 7th level, with a few at the 8th level. Only a handful had achieved perfection in the 9th level. Ultimate Dao Lords who could unite with the Dao in a perfect manner numbered less than a dozen. These were the most elite talents on Grave God Mountain, even more critical than emperors like them. Although some were dissatisfied, no one dared to voice their objections. After the Turtle Spirit Island Lord stepped back, he felt a bit uncomfortable. Although he hadn't suffered many losses this time, he hadn't obtained a single treasure. His gaze shifted to Jian Wushuang. Currently, among the 3 factions, the ones who suffered the most significant losses were the Kuei organization and the Elder Palace. Shang's avatar alone was comparable to all of them combined. As for the Kuei, they not only lost a peak-level emperor and a top-level Tier 6, but more importantly, Bai Junwang was gone. Initially, Jian Wushuang thought that once Bai Junwang recovered to his peak, he would sweep through everything, and all the treasures and opportunities here would be his. Now, not only had that plan fallen through, but he had also become the weakest party. There was only one top-level Tier 6 Emperor left by his side, and the other peak-level Tier 5 Emperors were practically useless. On the other hand, in the Elder Palace, after losing Shang's avatar, there were still 3 Tier 6 Emperors, each at the peak level. Even those who weren't at the peak level could easily defeat the half-hearted Tier 6 Emperors of the 4 great secret realms. Situ Nan was in a league of his own. No one could match him. Zhen Wuyang, Qi Shui, and Tongtian Buddha had strengths comparable to peak-level Tier 6 Emperors. With this exchange, the Elder Palace boasted 6 formidable powers, leaving aside some Tier 5 Emperors. As for Guiling, there were 7 or 8 Tier 6 Emperors, including 3 at the peak level. The remaining ones were top-level Tier 6 Emperors. The Tier 5 Emperors on Jian Wushuang's side were not as impressive. However, those details were inconsequential now. Guiling had set his sights on him, and this time, things might not be so easily resolved. Island Lord. Jian Wushuang showed great respect. Now he had no choice but to lower his head. With no one protecting him, he could fall at any moment. The Island Lord's expression remained unchanged as he solemnly said, "Speak, what exactly happened just now?" Situ Nan and Zhen Wuyang also turned their attention, clearly wanting to know what had transpired moments ago. Concerning the Universe Master, there was no time to inquire while escaping just now. Now that everything had come to a halt and there was no imminent danger, they naturally wanted to discuss it. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment. He knew he had to say something. Otherwise, he wouldn't easily pass through this situation. Elders, about the recent events, I am indeed not clear. We proceeded according to the plan, and the incident happened suddenly. I am not well informed, and unfortunately, it was our people who died. Jian Wushuang spoke sincerely. The ones who had died were indeed their own people. If it had been others, he might have been held by the Tier 6 Emperors as if he were a toy. Situ Nan's face darkened, and he spoke coldly. What plan? What organization? Speak one by one. Possibly accustomed to the ways of the heavenly realm, he began with a series of inquiries. Jian Wushuang turned to glance at Elder Zhishan, passing the blame onto him. Appearing to be just a Tier 5 Emperor, Jian Wushuang couldn't reveal too much. He could only disclose his recent exploration with friends and leave the rest for this old man to handle. Onlookers could see the peculiar status of Jian Wushuang, despite his relatively ordinary strength. I am the Lord of Purple Bamboo Forest in the Western Sea. This time I explored this place with a few friends. Unfortunately, this incident occurred. The fallen person, insatiable in greed, was overwhelmed and lost consciousness. As for the rest, I do not know. Elder Zhishan's words were vague, not as clear as Jian Wushuang's. Clearly, it was not going to pass as a plausible explanation. Jian Wushuang pondered the situation on the field. The avatar of the ultimate emperor probably had fallen, so the remaining combat power needed to be distributed. The Elder Palace and the inheritors were still superior. He needed to win over the Turtle Spirit Island Lord now. Not exactly winning over, but rather seeking refuge. Jian Wushuang secretly transmitted, Island Lord, at the moment the Elder Palace and the inheritors are the strongest on the field. We can't afford to fight with them. Otherwise, we'll be giving them an advantage. The opportunities ahead have already been seized by them. If we don't do something, we won't have a chance to intervene in the opportunities that follow. Young man, are you trying to use me again? The Turtle Spirit Island Lord wasn't foolish. He was right. Teaming up was indeed suitable at the moment, but Jian Wushuang, a top-level Tier 6 Emperor, didn't offer much leverage. One top-level Tier 6 Emperor, it didn't matter much. If it were a peak-level Tier 6, it might have made him somewhat wary, but a top-level one was easily suppressed with a casual move. Jian Wushuang was also aware that what he lacked was bargaining chips. He spoke up, Island Lord, don't you want to know why I can help the Bai Junang enter the body of the Universe Master? Guiling was momentarily stunned. He almost forgot that it was Jian Wushuang who assisted Bai Junwang in entering the body of the Universe Master. This fact was undeniable, especially the peculiar force erupting from Jian Wushuang's body, which could aid the Tier 6 Emperor in recovering his combat power. As long as Island Lord is willing to cooperate, I may not be of much help in future battles, but I guarantee there won't be any issue in restoring everyone's origin source, Jian Wushuang assured. Turtle Spirit Island Lord, however, was somewhat disdainful, saying indifferently, "Capturing you can achieve the same. Island Lord, feel free to try. I still have the courage for that." Jian Wushuang's eyes were resolute. Capture him? Highly unlikely. After a brief standoff, Jian Wushuang and Turtle Spirit Island Lord eventually reached an agreement. The treasures were distributed on a 1-to-9 basis, with Gue Ling's side having the first pick, leaving the rest to Jian Wushuang. This essentially severed Jian Wushuang's opportunity this time. However, merely preserving his life was already good enough, and he dared not have too many expectations. Survive first and then consider everything else in the long run. Situ Nan and the others did not want to stir up conflicts again, but when they looked at Jian Wushuang, there was a hint of killing intent in their eyes. Naturally, they didn't believe that Jian Wushuang and the others were from some force in the inner sea. Although they confronted the Shadow Sect in the Celestial Realm, they also had some understanding of the Kuei organization in the Earth Realm. Both were part of the same force. 3 forces transformed into 2, facing off once again. Now, the path ahead was blocked by Hu Qing, with Shen Wuyang and others guarding the way, leaving them with no choice but to wait. Jian Wushuang was also curious about whether Hu Qing could succeed. Their relationship was good, so there was no need to arrange for the Turtle Spirit Island Lord to interfere. In the Radiance, Hu Qing and Jiang Shang sat facing each other. "Master!" Jiang Shang looked at Hu Qing, her eyes flickering. She was protecting the way for Hu Qing, helping him integrate his Tao. Jiang Shang, who had become an emperor, had never walked his path before, and even the concept of the Tao was vague to her. Calling her an emperor was more of a physical classification, but she seemed more like a commoner in essence. The spirit of grass and wood around her was equivalent to her origin source Tao, capable of condensing into a spiritual sense of the origin source, a uniqueness in itself. A naive child hovered around the two. Hu Qing clasped his hands together, motionless. Integrate the Tao. As the name suggested, it was about integrating one's Tao with space, merging with the spatial origin, ultimately stepping into the ranks of emperors. Hu Qing had ample luck, increasing the probability of successfully harmonizing the path. The ultimate Tao Zen mechanism. It was elusive, unlike Jian Wushuang's sword Tao that was tangible. Zen was more like the heavenly way, closely related to time. It was not easy to merge with space. The Tao of Zen wafted through Hu Qing's space, lingering without merging. Because there was already a Tao within the space, the original heavenly Tao of that space, Hu Qing had to suppress it first before integrating his Zen mechanism into the space. As the saying goes, 2 tigers cannot share one mountain. How could there be a second heavenly Tao in one space? The origin source of Zen took on the form of Hu Qing, floating in the silent space. Virtuous. The cycle of the heavenly Tao, having long mastered the origin source of space, unexpectedly turned out to be a disadvantage. If he had only just grasped the origin source of space now, the heavenly Tao inside would probably be equally formidable. However, his spatial origin source had already reached the level of extreme balance between yin and yang, containing a unique heavenly Tao within. He hadn't anticipated that he would encounter the opportunity to integrate the Tao so soon after arriving here. Originally, he thought he would need to delve deeper into the ruins. But unexpectedly, after exiting the black hole, he found himself on a lotus platform by a spiritual spring on Lingtai Mountain. It seemed as if this place had been specially prepared for him. Various assisting treasures, coupled with a trace of the temporal origin Tao, were precisely what he lacked the most. By merging all the treasures and comprehending time, he embarked on the most crucial step in his cultivation journey. The path of the Emperor. It was like a bridge linking heaven and earth. Crossing this bridge would make him as vast as the heavens, but falling off it meant he could never ascend again. Time, on the other hand, was the process. The insight into the essence of all things was originally the deduction of myriad phenomena. Past, present, and future. The wisdom of clarity unified into one line. In the past, he was a novice monk, meditating on Wuliang Mountain for countless years. Now he was a transcendent emperor, standing tall through numerous trials. However, the current him seemed distant from the past and closer to the future. The Tao felt the same, as if the boundless and fearless Tao of the past was gradually becoming more distant. The future. It was vague but filled with hope. He couldn't see it clearly, but he could sense it. The future him would control the heavens and the earth, even manipulate time, yet there were large hands holding his spine, and those hands had always been there. In the future, Hu Qing's eyes flickered, suddenly opening wide as he directly looked at Jiang Shang. It seemed like he understood. The owner of those hands was Jiang Shang. Hu Qing was stunned. In the future, he would be controlled by his disciple until he became an entity mastering time, still unable to break free. Jiang Shang saw Hu Qing wake up and softly said, "Master, no problem." Hu Qing continued to close his eyes, returning to the space within. He hesitated a bit. He didn't know whether to break through or not. He could live for others. He had not yet fulfilled the wishes of several masters to convert all the Yen immortals in the Great Sea region. Is continuing down the path the right choice? Hu Qing murmured to himself. At this moment, he saw several former masters. The master with a jade-like face looked at Hu Qing, reaching out as if wanting to pull him. The rugged abbot, on the other hand, waved goodbye. He had strayed far from the path of the past, but he was getting closer and closer to Tao Merge. The Tao Merge was the true path. Hu Qing's eyes became determined. He no longer cared about Jiang Shang's hands. Without hesitation, he advanced, impacting the emperor's realm. Changes were also happening outside. The light on Hu Qing illuminated the world, far surpassing the radiance within the Lingtai mountain spring. On the distant Grave God Mountain, Zhenling took back the main body of Shang, standing side by side at the peak. Success! Zhenling let out a sigh. On Grave God Mountain, the first ultimate Tao Lord to break through the Emperor's realm appeared. Shang's current state could also see Hu Qing, feeling somewhat uneasy. Lord Zhenling, what about those hands? Not hands, but time. That will be Hu Qing's first tribulation. Zhenling was very satisfied. That trace of the origin source of time was something he had placed there. The remnants of the Western Sea were also a secret confrontation between him and Zhenling. It should have been opened long ago. He understood the matters of Zhenling better than anyone else. Always planning, just waiting for this day. Allowing Hu Qing to merge with the Tao was more important than the entire ruins in the Western Sea. There were indeed legacies and treasures of the three kings in the West Sea ruins, but Zhenling was not interested in them. Back when the Qixin Temple was established, it had plundered all the treasures in the river of spacetime. There was simply no end to it. Even with the appearance of universe masters, Zhenling could afford it. The plan in the Western Sea was for Hu Qing, and as for the follow-up, it would be left to others. This time, he emerged victorious. At least, that's how he saw it. Zhenling of the Giant God Clan had resurrected a universe master, but there was a significant difference in origin source, and after so many years of rigidity, only half of the power remained. Even if resurrected, there wasn't much of a threat. As soon as they left the remnants, his true form could descend upon the Western Sea and slay the opponent. Fuego! Zhenling turned to Shang, saying casually, "Are you going in?" Shang nodded, determination in his eyes. Not waiting. No more waiting. The secret technique couldn't reach a higher realm. Perhaps it's because I haven't encountered a suitable opponent. Shang let out a sigh. Over these years, he had broken through continuously, but it wasn't much. In the time pavilion, he had spent at least tens of thousands of epochs. The only difference from the outside world was having Zhenling's guidance, and the inheritances he obtained illuminated the path ahead. Now, the road ahead was broad, and he wanted to continue not just in seclusion. So he went to the River of Time. Once a mysterious River of Time, now exploring it felt less challenging than the four great secret realms. Too few powerful beings, too few resources. This River of Time was relatively young, lacking even a universe master. Compared to the ancient River of Time where Qixin resided, the difference was vast. Zhenling's thoughts drifted, recalling the past of Qixin. Compared to Qixin, the era of these inheritors wasn't much worse. In the beginning, Qixin was born on an ancient desolate star, teeming with wild beasts, with no place for the human race. Now, in the external river of time, at least the cultivators held sway, and special life forms had to stay on the sidelines. Zhenling pointed, and a black hole appeared. He warned, "Be careful. The opponent's background is very mysterious. Escape if you encounter danger. Don't worry. I'm not like those young people." Shang smiled. He was already a venerable figure in the original universe. How could he act recklessly? If unable to win, he would definitely choose to escape. Watching Shang enter the black hole, Zhenling turned his gaze back to Hu Qing. Although Shang's potential was strong, his path was somewhat extreme. The path of destruction. Not suitable. According to the will of Qixin, nurturing successors should follow a more stable path. Like Hu Qing, who pursued the way of Zen, deducing all things, he would become a pinnacle powerhouse in the universe in the future and also restrain himself because he saw farther than others. This way, perhaps he could continue to progress and avoid walking the old path of Qixin. It's important to note that in this world, achieving eternal existence is not so easy. Outside the Lingtai Spring, watching the radiant display and the rise of fate energy, experienced emperors knew that someone inside had succeeded. Success. Congratulations Tong Tian, Feng Yu, Zhen Wuyang, and Qi Shui all congratulated with clasped fists. Tong Tian Buddha nodded with gratification. He had high expectations for Hu Qing. Unlike Wuyang Buddha, Tong Tian Buddha was not narrow-minded and could accept others being stronger than him. Tong Tian Buddha was even more open-minded. The ultimate Tao was to be stronger than them, and that was an undeniable fact. Don't talk about the myriad Tao or the divine body paths. These were all useless. Even if your origin source mutated, it wouldn't work. Thinking about this, Tong Tian Buddha looked at Zhen Wuyang. Surprisingly, the origin source could indeed mutate. Since entering the Qixin temple, Zhen Wuyang's origin source had mutated. The origin source of a cultivator had regressed, transforming into the origin source of an ancient mythical beast. Whether it was good or bad, it had undoubtedly increased his strength. Otherwise, Zhen Wuyang wouldn't have been able to catch up with the speed of Feng Yu and Qi Shui so quickly after being suppressed by them initially. Back then, Feng Yu had suppressed them, but soon after entering the Qixin temple, Zhen Wuyang quickly surpassed them. The potential of Feng Yu is ordinary, considered a middle-of-the-road second-grade origin source Tao. In the future, he could reach the supreme peak, but going further would be difficult. It's not that one must possess a special origin source Tao to become the universe master. It's that after becoming the universe master, without a unique origin source Tao, one simply cannot live for long. Since inheriting the legacy of the universe master, Tong Tian Buddha's perspective has widened considerably. Even emperors aspire to become the universe master, but once they understand the reality, there are probably not many who harbor such thoughts. After becoming the universe master, one faces even more tribulations. At least an emperor with some fate energy can exist for a long time if they keep a low profile. But the universe master is different. Tribulations. The universe master is truly like the universe, with all kinds of tribulations. If one cannot overcome them, they will perish. Tong Tian Buddha even speculates that the reason Qixin fell was that he couldn't overcome the tribulations, and he perished with the river of time. Becoming the universe master without an extremely exceptional origin source Tao is akin to seeking death. Only those ultimate existences can go further. He's out. Tong Tian Buddha and the others smiled, looking at Hu Qing and Jiang Shang. After breaking through, Hu Qing sensed the surrounding powerhouses, somewhat surprised. Greetings to the emperors, Lord Buddha, and Hall Masters. Hu Qing bowed, acknowledging the emperors despite his breakthrough. On the Grave God Mountain, not only did Jinling take care of him, but Tong Tian Buddha and others also looked after this junior. Tong Tian Buddha faintly smiled and said, Hu Qing, you've achieved the rank of emperor. According to the rules of our hometown world, you are now also a Lord Buddha. The great Yen Immortal is a bodhisattva, the Yen Immortal is an arhat, and the mundane are mere novices. Hu Qing grew from a novice to a Buddha. For a moment, everything seemed surreal, but he knew deep down that he had embarked on the path of Zen, diverging from the path of Buddha. Facing the enthusiasm of the Tongtian Buddha, he didn't say much, just gave a faint smile. You just broke through to Tier 5. Hu Qing, your spatial realm is quite high. Hu Qing replied, now it's the stellar realm. This statement immediately made Guiling and others in the distance jealous. A Dao Lord just merged with the Dao, and his spatial realm became the same as theirs. Moreover, when the spatial realm reached the stellar realm, it was equivalent to Tier 6 Emperor in the 4 Great Secret Realms. However, Hu Qing was still a Tier 5 Emperor. This indicated a significant gap in their understanding of the origin source Dao. Junior Hu Qing successfully merged with the Dao and became a Tier 5 Emperor. I'm afraid his combat power can rival a Tier 6 peak. Feng Yu praised, feeling a bit dazed. When he entered the Qixin Temple, he was the peak of the original universe. Now, although he had become the coveted Tier 5 peak level, he was no longer the peak of the original universe. It was unclear whether he had become stronger or weaker. Many people had such thoughts. Now, many inheritors had sent avatars back to the original universe. But in the current original universe, there were no conflicts whatsoever. Encountering emperors weaker than oneself was not an occasion for bullying, and in the presence of stronger ones, respect naturally prevailed. The atmosphere was harmonious, devoid of any disputes. Even the younger generation, upon reaching the realm of transcendent immortality, would undergo the trials of the Qixin Temple. For the mundane beings in the original universe, there were plenty of treasures to nurture them. Even if certain treasures were lacking, they could be procured from the 4 Great Secret Realms. Even the current emperors were too lazy to venture out. What was there to explore? Innate treasures? Origin source treasures? All deemed as rubbish. It was better to scavenge in the 4 Great Secret Realms. In the presence of numerous powerhouses, Hu Qing appeared like the protagonist, engaging in conversations and receiving congratulations from various strong beings. Jian Wushuang stood in the corner, silently remarking in his heart, "Congratulations, Hu Qing!" Standing there like a lackey. Was this the difference? Just as everyone was engrossed in their discussions, a massive black hole manifested behind the spring. Everyone was startled and quickly retreated. Jian Wushuang even moved to the very back, prepared to escape at any moment. Even if there were treasures, he wouldn't have a chance. It was better to stay far away. From within the black hole, a towering figure emerged. He seemed to be one with the black hole, walking out with the destructive force within. Shang! Qishui rejoiced. The newcomer was none other than one of the only 2 ultimate emperors. Shang. First, he nodded towards everyone, then turned to Hu Qing and said, "Congratulations. Don't disappoint the cultivation efforts of Lord Jinling." Hu Qing also understood now. This place was probably the opportunity granted to him by Lord Jinling. "I came here to deal with the Universe Master. You guys move forward quickly. Greater opportunities lie ahead." As Shang's words fell, he erupted towards the direction behind them. His figure seemed to pause for a moment and eventually turned into an afterimage, slowly disappearing. Others were relatively unfazed, merely impressed by Shang's strength without much astonishment. However, for Guiling and others, their experiences were limited. Some among them had never even encountered a Supreme Peak expert. Guiling had more exposure, having ventured into the Inner Sea Monster Court and encountered the true Monster Emperor, a Supreme Peak level expert. There were only 2 Supreme Peak experts in the monster race of the Earth Realm, one establishing the Monster Court in the Western Sea, and the other residing in Tainan, a low-key monster wolf that he had only heard of but never seen. For them, reaching the Supreme Peak was already an extraordinary feat. However, the impression from the recent encounter surpassed the Supreme Peak. If that person had attacked them, a single glance might have been enough to annihilate the majority of them. Terrifying. Fortunately, he didn't attack them. Jian Wushuang was also astonished, not by the strength itself but by the origin source converging on Shang. It was forming into various rules. These were not ordinary rules but the laws governing the operation of the universe. This was an indication of reaching the realm of the universe. When space reached the level of the universe, it meant Xiang was close to the universe master level. Once he broke through space and condensed time, he would become a universe master. Envy. There was envy in Jian Wushuang's eyes. First, Hu Qing successfully merged with the Tao, and now he saw Xiang on the verge of becoming a universe master. Others, Jian Wushuang wouldn't envy, but he and Hu Qing as well as Xiang were of the same kind, all mastering the ultimate Tao. One day he would become an emperor, perhaps even a universe master. And now the realm of emperor was nearing as well. At the pinnacle of the 7th layer of the extreme Tao, once he reached the realm of black holes, it would assist him in attaining perfection in the extreme Tao. In the 8th layer of the sword Tao, and the ideas for the 9th layer were also present, approaching completion. This time he might step onto the path of the perfected Tao Lord, not far from the realm of the Tao merge. The path of the strong. Let's go! Guiling roared angrily, leading the others behind Situ, Nan and the rest. Although Hu Qing had successfully united the Tao, there was no need to proceed directly. There was no turning back now, so it was better to keep exploring. The Emperor was not the final destination. Ultimately, there was more to traverse. They continued toward the quiet mountain peaks. In a not-too-distant valley, there stood a massive ancient temple, worn with age, but the aura above soared into the sky. 3 Kings Court. Seeing the inscription above, Jian Wushuang felt a joy in his heart. No wonder the corpses didn't attack here. It turned out this was the lair of the 3 kings. It wasn't that they didn't attack. They simply couldn't get in. Looking at the 3 King Court in front of him, Situ Nan threw out a small seal and then looked at Guiling, saying, "Stop standing there. Bring out the bloodfall crystal to open the hall." "Humph. Do you really need to say that?" Guiling could only be tough on the surface. Knowing that Xiang's true self had arrived, he had become much more obedient. No longer daring to have any evil thoughts, he just hoped for fairness upon entering. If he could gain some benefits, that would be enough. He didn't expect much, just hoping it would allow him to make further progress. Facing an opponent like Xiang who dared to confront the universe master, challenging them was like courting death. Even though the distance was so great, a breath of air could potentially extinguish them. Crack! The stone statues outside the hall began to loosen. Everyone's hearts tightened as a faint glow appeared in the eyes of the statues. The strange sound echoed once again, incomprehensible to the onlookers. The sound was enchanting, emanating from the ancient hall of the 3 kings, representing the supreme legacy of the ancient kings. The 2 statues trembled slightly, but unfortunately, due to the hasty demise of the 3 kings in the past, even the guardian statues were damaged, and their internal spiritual consciousness was non-functional. Before the hall, only one statue slowly stood up, while the other shook for a while but failed to rise. Tragic! A massive aura began to gather, and everyone sensed the impending danger. Without time to retreat, the stone giant, formed from the statue, wielding a massive axe, directly attacked the crowd. "Retreat!" Guiling shouted angrily. The Tier 5 emperors around him had long retreated to a safe distance. The combat strength of the stone statue was unknown, but judging from its aura, it was unstoppable for any Tier 6 emperor. Woo! After emitting another strange cry, the stone statue began to shrink, and its aura weakened. The previous axe strike severely injured several Tier 6 emperors, including Situ Nan. Once the aura of the stone statue dropped to a certain level, a 5-character word appeared on its chest. Jian Wushuang recognized this character, and his eyes lit up. 5. What did it represent? The stone statue suddenly shrank, and its strength plummeted. What did this signify? Jian Wushuang, standing at the rear, surveyed the others in front. 5. Tier 5 Emperor? He counted them, and currently there were the most Tier 5 emperors on the scene. Understood. This stone statue was also selectively challenging them. Otherwise, with the power of the 3 kings, even a puppet guardian could easily defeat them. The fact that it lowered its strength to match theirs indicated a certain consciousness manipulating it. This was likely an inheritance similar to the Qishan temple, choosing successors. However, the downfall of the three kings was too abrupt, and they were ill-prepared. Just this one stone statue blocked their way. The other one seemed to be too ancient, unable to activate at all. After the diminishment of the dog-headed stone statue, a barrier appeared in front of the main hall, accompanied by numerous inscriptions. Each line of text was unique. Enter one by one? Finally, amidst countless lines of text, they discerned a form of ancient universal language. The general meaning was that everyone needed to individually confront the stone statues. Winners could enter, losers could not. Tier 6 emperors could enter directly. No wonder the chest of the stone statue bore 5 characters. It was meant to stop Tier 5 emperors. The onlookers exchanged glances, none daring to step forward voluntarily. Turtle Spirit Island Lord cast a sidelong glance at Jian Wushuang, stating coldly, "Let your people try first." All right. Jian Wushuang had no grounds for objection. He randomly selected a Tier 5 peak emperor to step forward for the trial. As the Tier 5 emperor stepped into the barrier, both sides erupted without any hesitation. Rip. Spurt. The Tier 5 emperor was torn apart directly, blood splattering on the spot. People nodded in approval. The strength of the stone statue was moderate. Tier 5 emperors like Zhen Wuyang could enter, but for others it was not so straightforward. However, the Tier 6 emperors were still somewhat uneasy. Although it was stated that Tier 6 emperors could enter, no one could guarantee the absence of danger. This time, not only did Gue Ling gaze at Jian Wushuang, but even Situ Nen also cast a glance. Helpless, Jian Wushuang could only say to Elder Zhishan, "Elder Zhishan, you go in first. Since it's said that Tier 6 emperors can enter, there should be no problem." Then, he transmitted comforting words, "All for the sake of Lord Shenling." Understood. Elder Zhishan's expression was resolute as he entered the barrier directly. The stone statue hesitated for a moment, confirming that it didn't make a move against Elder Zhishan. After about a breath's time, Zhishan's figure disappeared directly from the spot, indicating that he had entered. Situ Nan and the others breathed a sigh of relief and began entering one by one. Situ Nan, however, didn't rush in. He first let his 2 Tier 6 emperor subordinates go in, then allowed Zhen Wuyang and the others to follow. There was no intention to let the Gue Ling in. "You!" Gue Ling was furious. Situ Nan sneered, "Old turtle, why the hurry? I haven't gone in yet. Wait for these little guys to enter, and then I'll accompany you in." Zhen Wuyang and the others, with their considerable strength, easily entered. But for Gue Ling it was challenging. Among the inheritors, even Wan Xing could enter. When a Tier 4 emperor entered, the stone statue displayed a 4-character phrase, much to the delight of Luo Chuan, the 4th prince of the Mo Luo kingdom. It was difficult for a Tier 5 emperor to enter, but for a Tier 4 emperor it was relatively easier. At the same time, Luo Chuan glanced at the crown Prince Luo Sha with a disdainful smile. Luo Sha had just recently broken through to the Tier 5 emperor, at most reaching the peak level of the Tier 5. He had no hope of entering. Soon, all the inheritors had entered, with Situ Nan being the last to go in. He was afraid that the island lord of Turtle Spirit and the others would become anxious and try to breach the barrier. Even if he didn't dare to kill the inheritors, he could still block their way. So he stayed behind. Glancing at Gue Ling, he directly stepped into the barrier and disappeared. Gue Ling and the others couldn't wait any longer. Like dumplings being cooked, they all entered in a matter of moments. Now, the only ones left outside were the Tier 5 emperors. Jian Wushuang finally walked to the forefront. At this moment, their side was the strongest on the field. Under his command were a total of 9 Tier 5 cloaked emperors. On the side of Gue Ling, besides some emperors from the Mo Luo kingdom who stayed behind, there were also disciples of the Turtle Spirit Island and some subordinates of other Tier 6 emperors. Jian Wushuang didn't dare to claim that he could slay them all, but taking down one like Luo Sha was not a difficult task, especially when he still held Gong Miaoyi in his hands. He clenched his fist, and Gong Miaoyi, following behind Luo Sha, frowned. "Kill him or you'll die." Jian Wushuang's concealed avatar within Gong Miaoyi silently transmitted the message. "Kill him! Kill him!" However, Gong Miaoi hesitated to make a move, and Jian Wushuang's avatar began to devour. The deep pain that reached the origin source made cold sweat appear on Gong Miaoi's forehead. Among the present Tier 5 emperors, Luoxia had a relatively high status, but he lacked confidence. He let others try first. When he noticed something wrong with Gong Miaoi, he turned to her and whispered, "What's going on?" Gong Miaoi revealed a slight smile, shook her head, and softly said, "Nothing. All right." But before Luoxia could turn around, the bloodfall crystal in Gong Miaoi's hand pierced through his chest. Staring at the bloodfall crystal that appeared in his chest, Luoxia tried to turn around. However, Jian Wushuang had already appeared in front of him. With a single hand chop, unleashing a power of 40,000-fold divine body, he directly beheaded Luoxia. The divine body was shattered, leaving only the origin source. Jian Wushuang's body transformed into a faint black hole, directly devouring every trace of the origin source. All of this was completed in the blink of an eye. When everyone reacted, 9 Tier 5 peak emperors were already standing around Jian Wushuang. Click, click. The taste of the origin source was still as wonderful as ever. These were trivial matters. What mattered was the candle dragon arm he had long dreamed of obtaining. A segment of an arm or perhaps a piece of armor. Jian Wushuang gently placed it on his right arm, and a tremendous attractive force emanated from the beast god's origin source. The arm of Candle Dragon fused with Jian Wushuang's right arm, releasing a powerful aura. His divine body soared once again. A force that was beyond control surged through his right hand, causing veins to pop on his forehead. Boom! Jian Wushuang directly revealed his original appearance. A fierce, pale face with white hair flowing. Candle Dragon wings spread open. His right hand clenched slightly. He struggled to suppress the force. The entire right arm turned dark red, with blood-colored claws capable of tearing through space. This arm of his unilaterally increased the divine body to 50,000-fold. The overall divine body from 40,000-fold broke through to 45,000-fold. Too miraculous. Suppressing his curiosity, Jian Wushuang looked around and directly charged at Luo Chuan. The fourth prince, who was still astonished that Jian Wushuang had just killed his own elder brother, hadn't reacted yet. He was directly crushed alive by Jian Wushuang's divine body, and his origin source was devoured by the huge suction in the palm. The principles of a rabbit's death and a fox's grief were not understood. The dead had no complaints. The remaining Tier 5 emperors on the field revealed expressions of fear. After obtaining the arm of Candle Dragon, Jian Wushuang's divine body skyrocketed, and his strength naturally increased significantly. However, among these people, he still couldn't be considered the strongest. Rest assured, I only have a grudge against the Mo Luo nation. You all can enter easily. Jian Wushuang made a welcoming gesture. Bukuin, Broly's father, was somewhat incredulous. He stood behind Broly, holding him back and not allowing him to enter. Since you all are uneasy, I'll go in first, Jian Wushuang said with a slight smile, restoring his appearance and concealing his identity. However, when he looked at Bukuin, a hint of hostility appeared in his eyes. Bukuin recognized him, but the old man was clever enough to pretend not to notice. No mercy. After I go in, kill all those who can't enter, especially that old man. Jian Wushuang wore a smiling face but secretly ordered the elimination of everyone unable to enter. Being unable to enter indicated average strength, and these Tier 5 peak-level emperors should be able to easily sweep through them. Clatter. Jian Wushuang entered the barrier. The stone statue hesitated for a moment, its figure shrinking continuously. Even when it became tiny and formed a character, it couldn't get smaller. However, it still differed from Jian Wushuang's realm, and in the end, Jian Wushuang was teleported away without the statue making a move. This surprised many people. Bukuin's father sighed in relief and whispered, "My son, I can't accompany you on this adventure. Remember to follow the island lord after entering and don't provoke others." Got it. Broly nodded, then unusually added, "Father, take care. I'm going in." Clatter. After Broly entered the barrier, the stone statue restored its strength to that of a Tier 5 emperor. In a brief moment, Broly effortlessly shattered the statue, even more easily than Jin Wuyong and the others. Bukuin revealed a satisfied smile. From fleeing the heavenly realm to successfully merging with Tao in the Western Sea, Broly's actions were significant, attracting the attention of the Turtle Spirit Island Lord, who took him as a disciple. After obtaining a powerful backer, Bukuin was content and devoted himself to cultivation. Broly's strength advanced rapidly, and his realm seemed intricately connected to Broly's. The stronger Broly became, the faster Bukuin would break through. However, something strange occurred. When Bukuin was a Tier 3 Emperor, he wasn't as formidable as a Tier 2 peak level, but now, at the Tier 5 Emperor, his combat power was even weaker than some Tier 4 ordinary Emperors. As his realm ascended, his combat power weakened. The weaker his strength, the stronger Broly became, as if it were a kind of destiny. This was the Tao of transformation. In the external world, after no one else could enter, a great battle took place. In this battle, everyone perished, including Broly's father, Bukuin. Inside the Three Kings' Court, Jian Wushuang entered and found a long, narrow passage. Numerous steps connected, leading to the deepest point. Looking ahead, he could only see up to the 10th step. A bit surprised but without much thought, he stepped onto the stairs. Buzz! A stream of information began to transmit to his mind, a formidable esoteric technique. What is this? Jian Wushuang frowned. The esoteric technique was short and simple, something he could understand at a glance. Without much contemplation, he quickly mastered it and ascended to the 2nd step. Like before, a piece of information reached his mind with just a glance. This time it was a bit more challenging, but he deciphered it in the blink of an eye. The two could be linked. It was a supreme technique about the origin source of qi. Jian Wushuang continued forward. When he stepped into the 3rd step, a figure appeared behind him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and the figure vanished. Is it him? Jian Wushuang thought of Broly, whom he had encountered at the Xianxia Palace. He disappeared directly? Isn't that too quick? Even in simplicity, there should be a pause. But the other party rushed straight up, surpassing 10 steps, and soon became invisible ahead. It was unclear how fast he was. In just the blink of an eye, he reached the 10th step. Jian Wushuang began to doubt himself. Was the other party too fast? Or was he too slow? The difference was too significant. Is this the Tao of transformation? Jian Wushuang was deeply shaken in his heart. The Tao encompasses all things and myriad ways. When these ways transform into the power of all things, he found it incredibly marvelous. However, he still hadn't comprehended the rules contained within. Perhaps he could find answers from Broly. Jian Wushuang's eyes darkened. He continued forward. A quarter of an hour later, he saw a figure ahead. It was a Tier 6 Emperor, apparently a strong figure from the Turtle Spirit Island. He wore a high crown, with a face resembling white jade. It was Bai Huang. As a sea lion, he was quite famous in the Western Sea. However, his strength was lacking, belonging to the category of those who were ostentatious but not powerful. Just a regular Tier 6. Quickly, Jian Wushuang caught up with him. Bai Huang turned his head and also noticed Jian Wushuang. He had already been somewhat embarrassed at the rear. Even Broly, a disciple of the Turtle Spirit Island Lord, had surpassed him. Now he was overtaken by Jian Wushuang, causing his expression to change slightly. Jian Wushuang paid no attention to him, brushing past. In this realm, there was no divine power in his body, making it impossible for him to retaliate against others. Otherwise, he would have to be cautious of these people. The 1700th step. Jian Wushuang encountered another Tier 6 Emperor, still a powerful figure from the Guiling Island. After traveling this far, Jian Wushuang finally grasped a hint of the purpose. Walking here was more like comprehending a secret technique. This technique tested their souls. Jian Wushuang's soul power was not weak, and by now, he had understood some of its subtleties. The Soul Tao origin source. This rather special origin source Jian Wushuang encountered for the first time. Moreover, the creator of this technique was likely a powerhouse of the ultimate Tao, as the contained origin source was immensely powerful. It contained the insight of the ultimate Tao. Jian Wushuang was certain that this existence was definitely a powerhouse at the level of the universe master. The higher he went, the stronger Jian Wushuang's soul became. Combining what he had comprehended before, he was now beginning to grasp a part of the soul origin Tao. In his sea of all things, the strongest was still the sword Tao, but the soul Tao origin Tao, starting from a drop of water, had evolved into a pool. Phew! 2000th step. Finally, he felt a sense of stagnation. It was time to stop and cultivate. The growth of the soul was crucial for his realm advancement. The sea of extreme Tao. The increasingly powerful Jian Wushuang began to melt the shattered origins floating in the sea of origin source. Each piece was like crystal. Continuous fusion and release made him even more powerful. The last 3 layers of the extreme Tao had no bottlenecks. The only difficulty was how to digest these unmerged origin source crystals within the sea of origin source. Initially, they were fragments. Now they had condensed into an underwater reef. They became an obstacle to his breakthrough. If these reefs were not removed, he would eventually suffer. Cultivation was like a flat boat floating on the sea. It could withstand storms, but if it touched a reef, disaster was imminent. To smoothly proceed, he had to melt these reefs. But now, he had only fused less than 1 layer, with 90% still remaining. Currently, he only sees the tip of the iceberg, and more crystals lie beneath the sea. Even reaching the peak of his soul realm doesn't guarantee the complete integration of all crystals. This requires assistance from the spatial realm. Once the spatial realm reaches the level of a black hole, he can quickly devour and fuse these crystals. Continue. Though small, every advancement in his soul brings the fusion of many crystals and a purer strength. The first time he ascended 2000 steps in one go. This time he ascended 800. He has caught up with Emperor Tianshan, the top-level emperor among the Tier 6F. Chasing these people is nothing. Since entering, he hasn't seen a single inheritor. He hasn't even glimpsed Broly's silhouette. Perhaps their speed is faster than his, even though he entered earlier. They shouldn't have distanced themselves so much. The higher the soul realm, the farther he can see. Now he can discern those within 100 steps in front of him. Once muddled, his eyes are now as sharp as thunder and lightning. Cross-legged, he continues to cultivate, elevating the sea of extreme Tao. And so, the cycle repeats. After an unknown period, Jian Wushuang finally encounters a familiar face. Emperor Wan Xing. 104 steps away from Wan Xing, Jian Wushuang is delighted. It has been thousands of years since they parted ways after the original planet. Now, not only has the other party successfully integrated Tao, but it seems he has also become a disciple of Situ Nan. He's thriving now. Situ Nanny's the deputy hall master of the enforcement hall in the Elder Palace, with strength comparable to the Supreme Peak. He wields immense power in the heavenly realm, and taking Situ Nan as a master practically means striding with authority in the heavenly realm. However, the current Wan Xing seems to be more restrained. Gone is the once domineering aura, replaced by a subtle presence. It's like that of an ordinary cultivator, taking each step carefully, contemplating for a long time with each step before advancing again. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang quickly caught up, turned to glance at Wan Xing, expressionless, and effortlessly surpassed him. Seeing Jian Wushuang overtake, Wan Xing was somewhat surprised, but it was only a momentary surprise. He then continued to immerse himself in the comprehension of his secret technique. 5000th step. Snap! As Jian Wushuang stepped in, his figure flashed and disappeared from the original spot. At this place, the eternal changes. Jian Wushuang hadn't reacted yet when he heard an ancient voice, surprisingly in the ancient language he could understand. Cultivator, you've climbed 5000 steps, indicating that your soul has reached the threshold of the 30,000 Hall's heavenly lord. You can choose any transformation Tao method here. Jian Wushuang saw the scenery in front of him clearly. A colossal ancient hall with many thrones above, and floating in the uppermost space was a gigantic skull, resembling a mythical beast. The voice seemed to come from there. A reward of a complete set of Tao methods? Jian Wushuang revealed a joyful expression. The transformation Tao. It belongs to a very special origin source Tao, even rarer than the ultimate Tao. And the methods of the transformation Tao are even scarcer. Although he is not a practitioner of the transformation Tao, the extreme Tao contains elements of it, and the transformation Tao can change everything. No matter what he cultivates, he can incorporate the principles of the transformation Tao. This is somewhat like the extreme Tao, but while the extreme Tao encompasses all things, the transformation Tao changes and alters all things, fundamentally different. Divine Demon Body Refinement. Jian Wushuang took a jade slip from the nearest throne and examined it carefully. It was a manual on body refinement similar to the one in the demon sealing space. However, he didn't need this one. After a brief glance, he put it back. Slaying gods. Demonic eyes. Various techniques. Jian Wushuang glanced at them and abandoned, as they didn't seem very suitable. These thrones seemed to follow a sequence. The closer to the front, the more powerful the techniques. Jian Wushuang wasn't in a hurry, systematically inspecting each one. After inspecting tens of thousands of techniques, he realized that if these were revealed, they might attract the appearance Xinling. No wonder Bai Junwang had said that the Three-King Court, in ancient times, could rival the Qixin Temple. Indeed extraordinary. There were so many techniques at this level. Moreover, these techniques seemed to be created by supreme peak-level experts. At the top, there were more than 10 thrones whose techniques Jian Wushuang didn't have the authority to view. Cultivator, you need to reach 10,000 steps to select techniques from the thrones above. Jian Wushuang stepped back, respectfully saluting. For the time being, this junior has no need. I would like to continue ascending. Very well. The giant beast opened its mouth and swallowed Jian Wushuang whole. Continue ascending. Mainly because most of the profound arts he obtained were out of the ordinary. The heavenly demon technique is a supreme peak level technique. Even though he hadn't perfected its cultivation, he was not inclined to delve into such advanced studies anymore. If he were to learn, he would choose the strongest. The ordinary ones didn't interest him. He continued on his journey. It didn't take long before he encountered a familiar face, although they weren't exactly close. It was a Tier 5 peak-level emperor from the Elder Palace. Surprisingly, he kept encountering several of these old fellows. Despite their age, their insights were comparable to Wan Xing glancing back. He saw Wan Xing trailing 200 steps behind him. The higher the realm of the soul, the clearer one's vision became. Beyond 5,000 steps, he could even make out scenes 300 steps away. As he progressed, he realized that the fragments of information he gained formed a rudimentary soul technique when linked together. When he subtly manipulated it, his entire being trembled, and a force emerged in the palm of his hand. The power of the Soul Tao was peculiar, similar to the Transformation Tao. Jian Wushuang speculated that one of the three kings in the Three Kings Court likely cultivated the Soul Tao. Otherwise, they wouldn't have attached their Soul Tao secret technique to the steps. Upon careful examination, he discerned that this secret technique had roughly 5 layers. Despite nearing 7,000 steps, he had yet to fully grasp even the first layer. It seemed that he might only understand it after reaching 1,000 steps, making it more demanding than the requirements for the Transformation Tao, which needed 5,000 steps. The threshold for the Transformation Tao was set at 5,000 steps since it was not his main cultivation path. Island Lord Guiling? Once again, a figure appeared before Jian Wushuang. It was indeed Guiling, reaching here at such a fast pace, proving the extraordinary strength of a Tier 6 peak-level expert. Despite any flaws in the origin source, the soul remained flawless. As Jian Wushuang caught up, Guiling remained indifferent, steadily advancing. At 5,000 steps, he also visited the Eternal Transformation Pavilion and learned a shocking truth: flawed origin source. The realization that his origin source was defective was something only a few peak experts in the 4 great secret realms were aware of. Unable to progress further, they began to doubt themselves. Guiling, not having reached the true peak of the Emperor tier, obviously lacked this awareness. Now that he understood, he felt a mix of disappointment and surprise. The surprise came from discovering a method in the Eternal Transformation Pavilion to help him restore his flawed origin source. Jian Wushuang's origin source was flawless, and he remained oblivious to these intricacies. Seeing that the other party was immersed and not exchanging greetings, he continued to walk forward. The Soul Dao Secret Technique. This technique could be considered a free gift to them, also regarded as the most powerful secret technique. However, obtaining the complete technique would probably require going through some challenges. After ascending 8,000 steps, Jian Wushuang found that he could see the scenery beyond the 800 steps. 9,000 steps meant he could see 900 steps. So, 10,000 steps corresponded to 1,000 steps. He was unsure whether this was related to the soul secret technique or the realm of the soul. 9,999th step. Here, 7 emperors were stationed. These 7 were all powerhouses from the Elder Palace, ranging from the Tier 6 like Situ Nan to Tier 5 peak-level emperors. From ancient times to the present, their realms might not be very high, but in terms of the soul, they were considerably stronger than the inheritors like him. It was just unclear why they had stopped here. Although they were said to be stronger than the inheritors, Jian Wushuang had only seen the shadow of one of the inheritors, Wan Xing. Moreover, Wan Xing had been following closely behind him, not much weaker. Their soul was indeed stronger than the inheritors, but the speed of comprehending secret techniques was not as fast as that of the inheritors. This was an indisputable fact. Otherwise, why would Jinling bother nurturing them? After digging through countless universes, they had selected these inheritors. Among the inheritors who entered this place, even the weakest, Wan Xing, could rank in the top 1,000 among inheritors. Stronger than some ultimate existences. Not all beings mastering the ultimate Tao would become transcendent Tao lords or emperors. Some inheritors who grasped the ultimate Tao were currently not even Tao lords, stuck at the 5th or 6th level, unable to advance. Also, it was the first group of ultimate existences that, after accumulating cultivation for a long time and encountering the Qixin Temple, erupted into Tao lords. Subsequently, they began seeking breakthroughs. However, even among this group, very few could perfect the ultimate Tao after such a long time of cultivation. Currently, it seemed that only Hu Qing had successfully merged with the Tao in a perfected manner. Jian Wushuang was among the first group of people to master the Tao Ultimate, reaching the 8th level, a member of the initial cohort. The extreme Tao had no bottlenecks for him. Once he mastered the realm of black holes, he could rapidly reach perfection in his cultivation. His merging with the Tao was also progressing quickly. However, he had not made any preparations for merging with the Tao. This time, he wanted to see if he could gain some benefits from this place. Preparations for merging with the Tao. When Hu Qing merged with the Tao, he watched, and there were so many treasures, not to mention the power contained in the eye-shaped spiritual spring. Probably, not even all the godsterness in 1,000,000 trillion regions in Tiannan could produce such an effect. This wasn't a single stone but a whole region. Even if he emptied the entire southern region, he couldn't get as many godsterness as what was contained in that one glance of the spiritual spring, not to mention the numerous other treasures he couldn't see. The most crucial thing was the location. The place had a profound and abundant aura, probably a dwelling place of a universe master. He wasn't fortunate enough to enjoy such a place with the right timing, location, and people. Originally, he thought that even the Jinling might favor him, but due to the incident with Kuei organization, not being expelled was already considered good enough. He didn't dare to ask for more. Upon reaching the 9,999th step, Jian Wushuang finally understood why so many powerful beings were trapped here. This place was indeed extraordinary. The secret technique of the soul wasn't difficult. He comprehended it in a month. However, the subsequent chess game puzzled him. In the origin source space, a phantom figure appeared. This person had blood-red skin, disheveled hair, and wore a black robe embroidered with golden runes. A bit overweight and untidy, with eyes like copper bells. This reminded Jian Wushuang of the Yama in the mortal world. Ordinary people would be truly startled at the sight. Hee, little guy, play another round with me. The entire space transformed into a chessboard, and the two faced each other from a distance. Chess of war. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment, first paying his respects, then starting to contemplate. He understood the rules of the chess game through the opponent's description, but the tactics were a different matter. In war chess, there were no conventional chess pieces. All the pieces were condensed in space. Jian Wushuang imitated the person opposite him and condensed a chess piece, a piece of the Wood Dao. Wood Dao, the spirit of heaven and earth, the root of the 5 elements. He had set up a good scenario, but the problem was where to place it. Fortunately, he possessed the extreme Dao and knew where to use the Wood Dao origin. Water. Water nourishes wood. Jian Wushuang made his move, placing the Wood Dao chess piece at the boundary of the chessboard, where there was a natural river. The old Yama's eyes lit up, expressing delight. Little guy, interesting. The chess piece he had just condensed was held in his hand the entire time, and Jian Wushuang had no idea what kind of chess piece it was. Snap! A light Dao chess piece. It landed in the darkest corner of the chessboard, which was originally Jian Wushuang's territory, instantly illuminating half of the chessboard. Jian Wushuang also tried to imitate, but he found that each time the opponent countered. After some contemplation, Jian Wushuang grasped the void, and 2 chess pieces appeared in his hand. He placed a Thunder Dao origin source first, placing it at the edge of the opponent's light Dao chess piece. Instantly, lightning flickered, and the sky darkened a bit. The old Yama was somewhat surprised, momentarily uncertain. After thinking for a while, he reached into the origin source space and condensed a chess piece. Yang Dao origin source. Combining light Dao with Yang Dao, a hot star was formed. You can do it like this? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Could it be played like this? Encircling this point, Jian Wushuang embarked on a lengthy path of decryption, cultivating Thunder Dao to generate an electric world. While the opponent increased the stakes, he also continuously invested. Dark Dao, Thunder Dao, Electric Dao, Rain Dao, Wind Dao. Finally, he condensed Destruction Dao, and its further evolution led to a black hole. Jian Wushuang's path broadened. No matter how vast the light Dao was, where else could it go? Jian Wushuang revealed a pleased expression. He was about to win. However, at this moment Yama revealed a slight smile. He found the little guy in front of him very interesting and had no intention of going easy on him. He won most of the other people who had come before at this point. But Jian Wushuang was unaware. Crack! A move was made. Around the scorching stellar pavilion, 9 large planets began to orbit, forming a river. What is this? Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. He hadn't even figured out black holes, and the other party had crossed the universe, directly opening up a river of time and space. How was he supposed to play now? He never expected to end up like this and began to doubt himself. Others could pass through, so why couldn't he? I lost. Jian Wushuang shook his head, somewhat despondent. The old man Yama was very happy and said with a faint smile, Little guy, don't be in a hurry. Let's continue. In this space, Jian Wushuang was trapped by the opponent for who knows how many years before finally breaking free. From the first round's black hole to later devouring the universe with a black hole, it truly allowed him to understand the complex structure of the universe. However, winning against the universe was not easy, but later on, Jian Wushuang took a broader approach. He no longer focused on individual cities or lands but drew a line first, opening up myriad realms with that line, sketching a starry sky. Only then could he be considered to have defeated the opponent head-on. At the moment of the old Yama's defeat, he was stunned, and there was no trace of unwillingness in his eyes after the loss, but rather a contemplation. You've won. The old Yama retracted the space, and his figure dissipated. Before leaving, he left a sentence. I'll give you a piece of advice. Walk your own path. Never doubt yourself. Today, you defeated a once formidable existence. You can be proud to continue your journey. Jian Wushuang was puzzled. What could winning a chess game prove? But when he left this space, he understood. It was an instant enlightenment, because the insights he gained during the chess game had all turned into reality. He truly understood everything that would follow. At least the black hole realm was no longer as vague as it used to be. The avatar deep within the black hole shuttled faster, and the realm continued to rise, shattering the reefs within the origin sea one by one. This match was probably the most rewarding for Jian Wushuang among everyone, because the old Yama might let others pass, but he found Jian Wushuang interesting and immersed himself in the game, unexpectedly even getting beaten in the end. Phew! Jian Wushuang took the final step, reaching the 10,000 step. Now, where he looked, there was no one around, and he didn't know how long he had been trapped here. After reaching 10,000 steps, his figure disappeared again. Eternal transformation. Jian Wushuang didn't understand the meaning behind it. He speculated that it should be related to the transformation Tao. Arriving at the familiar hall, the gigantic beast head spoke again. Cultivator, choose your method. This time he didn't waste any time and went straight to the top. On more than 10 thrones, there were floating jade scrolls, not jade slips like those extraordinary skills. It seemed different from those supreme techniques. Jian Wushuang went directly to the main seat and took the scroll. 3 conspicuous characters above, Eternal Transformation Pavilion. The name of the hall matched its significance. Obtaining the most powerful secret technique of this hall so easily left Jian Wushuang somewhat incredulous. Eternal Transformation Pavilion. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes. As he suspected, it wasn't that simple. The Eternal Transformation Pavilion here was merely a minor cultivation method. Even a heavenly lord could practice it. It couldn't be considered a particularly cherished secret technique. Eternal Transformation, as implied by its name, was a minor path that allowed one to achieve the level of eternal transformation. It could induce changes in a divine body or a specific aspect of the origin source. After the transformation, the result was an amplification of power. In the early stages of the minor path, there were variations like the first transformation and hundredfold transformation. The first transformation increased power by a factor of 1, the hundredfold transformation by a factor of 10, and the eternal transformation by a hundredfold. Upon discovering this, Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. His divine body could already be enhanced by the beast god's power, and his origin source possessed the power of all things. Even though it didn't need enhancement, having the means to amplify it was something he wouldn't hesitate to use. Once the power of all things was amplified, he dared not imagine how formidable he would become. It was not in vain that he came here. Jian Wushuang was ecstatic. Seeing Jian Wushuang settle on the Eternal Transformation Pavilion, the talking beast's head spoke. Have you made your choice? I have. Jian Wushuang nodded. The usually emotionless head of the mystical beast gave an unexpected reminder. You need to think carefully. The techniques on the higher levels can be cultivated to the greater Mahayana realm. While eternal transformation is formidable, it can only be cultivated to the minor Mahayana realm. This junior is currently lacking the Eternal Transformation Pavilion's secret technique. No need to consider anything else. Jian Wushuang shook his head, resolute. What he lacked was not something suitable for him, but rather what was missing. There were many techniques suitable for him, but they were merely embellishments, offering little improvement. He preferred what he lacked the most. Moreover, the Eternal Transformation Pavilion's secret technique could probably enhance his abilities even after becoming an emperor. The minor Mahayana realm was enough for him to use until he reached the emperor level. He didn't have too many extravagant desires. There would be better opportunities in the future. You may leave. After the beast's head was devoured again, 2 paths appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. A leaderboard also appeared above. Soul Dao Inheritance. Tongtian Buddha Zhen Wuyang Hu Qing Jiangshang. Situ Nangue Ling Island Lord Gong Miaoi Transformation Dao Inheritance. Broly Wanderer Qishui Wan Xing Emperor Tianshan. In total, 16 powerhouses. 9 chose the Soul Dao Inheritance, while 7 followed the path of Transformation Dao. Transformation Dao pursued combat strength, while Soul Dao was more stable, forging foundations and broadening perspectives. Those who chose Soul Dao had similar combat strength, seeking to go even further. Zhen Wuyang, Tongtian Buddha, and Gue Ling were good examples. Especially Gue Ling had greater ambitions. To break through to the supreme peak, one had to accumulate slowly. Given the choice between the 2 paths, Jian Wushuang would have chosen the Soul Dao inheritance. He started ascending the Soul Dao steps, genuinely intending to complete the journey and acquire the complete secrets of the Soul Dao. You guys have choices, but I don't. Jian Wushuang helplessly shook his head. Then his figure transformed into two. Clone. Anyone could have clones, but an emperor's clone was a mere body, possessing power but little else. Jian Wushuang was different. Not only could he divide his physical body, but also his origin source. His origin source Dao had undergone 10 refinements, seamlessly integrating with his physical form. With his current origin source strength, he could create several clones with strength similar to his main body. However, these clones lacked the cultivation of supreme arts and powerful treasures, making them somewhat weaker. Without the beast god weapon and the heavenly demon technique, he would only have the power of a Tier 4 emperor. Creating too many clones was also futile. After achieving emperor status, it would be different. At that point, even a single origin source clone would likely possess the strength of a Tier 6 emperor. Then, he would truly be formidable. One person could transform into a group of Tier 6 emperors, surpassing even Shan Jun's clones. He wanted both inheritances. Choice? That was for the weak. The two figures entered the respective paths together. On the ranking displayed along the path, a change occurred. At the bottom, Jian Wushuang's name occupied the last position. After entering, Jian Wushuang discovered one thing. He had been exposed. Changes couldn't be made. But it didn't matter. If exposed, so be it. Within the Soul Inheritance passage, Hu Qing, ranking 3rd, continued to walk with difficulty. While catching his breath, he inadvertently glanced at the rankings and froze. Jian Wushuang. Hu Qing suddenly turned his head and muttered in a low voice, "Brother Wushuang?" He felt a burst of joy. Since encountering the figure of Jian Wushuang in the black hole, he had been convinced that Jian Wushuang was still alive. Unexpectedly, he would meet him here. He must have also entered through that black hole. Jiang Shang, who was walking alongside him, saw this name and felt a deep fear from the bottom of her heart. Even her origin spirit was trembling. He eats children, a somewhat clumsy spirit of grass and wood, originally lying on Jiang Shang's shoulder and sleeping soundly, shouted in surprise upon seeing Jian Wushuang's name. It directly hid inside Jiang Shang's body. Hu Qing didn't have much surprise, but Jiang Shang became cautious. After entering this passage, all disguises on Jian Wushuang were gone. Now his soul was drifting naked. The power of all things, power of devouring, and thought power. The three revolved around his body. The power of all things was still fine. It was the force of heaven and earth. The power of devouring was different. Not only was it the destruction in the black hole, but it was also the evil aura that devoured all living beings. Compared to others, thought power was stronger. These were enough to shock ordinary cultivators. Walking at the forefront, Tongtian Buddha and Jin Wuyang also saw Jian Wushuang's name. Tongtian Buddha knew little about Jian Wushuang, but Jin Wuyang was delighted. Seeing Jian Wushuang here meant he was still alive, and this time he could bring Jian Wushuang back to the Grave God Mountain. Situ Nan of the Elder Palace felt a glimmer of joy in his heart. When he came here, he received a notification from above that he would encounter the missing Jian Wushuang and was entrusted with delivering a jade slip to him. He had not found Jian Wushuang for such a long time. He thought that Jian Wushuang had died and did not expect him to hide so well. Apart from Jian Wushuang, there was another person, Broly. The former had received orders from Jinling, while the latter had received strict orders from Wuxia. When he arrived, he prioritized searching for Broly. After finding him, he had been observing him in secret. Wuxia had kept Broly's situation a secret and had only given a simple description to Situ Nan, instructing him to find this person in the Earth realm. Unexpectedly, they encountered him here. It was quite lucky. Now that they had also found Jian Wushuang, it could be considered hitting two birds with one stone. Returning this time would fulfill his mission. However, Wuxia sought something even greater, a cultivator of the transformation Dao, and not just any, but a native emperor from the 4 great secret realms. Once handed over to Jinling, it would be a tremendous achievement. The Elder Palace might have to make an exception and appoint an additional palace lord. Jian Wushuang did not know that his appearance would surprise so many people. The passage to the Soul Dao inheritance was as unremarkable as it was when they arrived. However, the transformation Dao had some novelty to it. Every step he took on the staircase led to a transformation in his cultivation Dao. With the inherent understanding of all things and all Daos from the origin source, he moved the fastest, perhaps even faster than Broly. The staircase of the transformation Dao was still quite short, totaling only 10,000 steps. In just a quarter of an hour, Jian Wushuang had ascended 100 steps, surpassing even the last person. The speed behind him did not decrease as he continued to charge forward. Soon, he was in the top 3, surpassing Qishui. Qishui's heart trembled. The person in front of him looked familiar, but he couldn't recall ever seeing them in this place before. After entering the Qishan temple, he had encountered so many things and people that it was hard to remember them all. The millions of cultivators in the Qishui Hall, initially familiar, had become a blur in his memory. Many had been selectively forgotten. Therefore, he did not care too much and continued walking forward. Jian Wushuang walked fast enough, but he still couldn't see Broly. He could now see the first 2,000 stone steps clearly. He had already walked 4,000 steps, but he still couldn't see Broly. Broly had already walked at least 6,000 steps. In other words, the other party had transformed into 6,000 types of origin Dao. This was too terrifying. Jian Wushuang, who cultivated the Dao of all things, could comprehend the transformation of myriad ways. But why did Broly have this ability? Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment and began to understand. When the old man with the goat horns went back to find someone, he was probably looking for Broly. To be able to make the goat-horned old man turn back without caring about anything, it must be an order from Wuxia or Jinling. If it was Jinling, he'd probably go personally. It was most likely Wuxia's order. The fact that the disciple of the Qishan temple cared so much indicated that the transformation Dao was more formidable than Jian Wushuang had imagined. One of the kings in the Three Kings Court practiced the Dao of transformation, illustrating its uniqueness. Jian Wushuang continued forward, and each transformation on his body became more pronounced. From the simplest common Dao to extremely complex synthesized origin sources, such as the fusion of water and fire to form a yin-yang pathway, or reaching the limit of destruction and turning his body into a black hole. After each transformation, Jian Wushuang carefully pondered the mysteries within. All things are unique, and one can transform all things. Jian Wushuang had to break through the mysteries one by one and comprehend them repeatedly. He had to be foolproof in his cultivation. The intricacies of it all required Jian Wushuang to unravel each one, to contemplate repeatedly. In cultivation, one had to achieve perfection without any room for error. The elevation of the extreme Dao demanded just that, an understanding of the rules inherent in everything. All things, all tribulations. Jian Wushuang recalled Xian Yi's secret scripture on myriad tribulations. What seemed uncomplicated initially became more apparent as he delved deeper. The trials within all things were far from simple, akin to the karmic tribulation he carried. At the culmination of each path lay a tribulation, much like the karma and killing tribulation he bore due to his past actions. It was intense, affecting his fate energy. Thus, he needed to resolve it before the integration of the Dao, transforming it into auspicious fate energy. Otherwise, it would truly become a tribulation of slaughter. Compared to the transformation Dao, the Soul Dao path was smoother. The road of the Soul Dao was an extraordinary secret method, with each stage involving contemplation. Once one grasped its essence, they could proceed unimpeded. Two paths, the Soul Dao and the Transformation Dao. The Three Kings Courts should represent three kings, so why were there only two paths? Jian Wushuang was perplexed. He remembered the red-faced old man. That peculiar memory helped Jian Wushuang understand. On that unique chessboard, he integrated all things and ultimately defeated the old man. From the chessboard, he gained a new understanding of all things. Compared to these two paths, that chessboard might hold more potential for his advancement. Three kings. Jian Wushuang wouldn't settle for seeking guidance from just one. He intended to push the limits of all three paths. Only then could he obtain the true core inheritance of the three kings' courts. How long had it been? Since entering the vast great desolate wilderness, every inheritance had placed him in a subordinate position, denting his confidence. Regardless, this time, he was determined to obtain the three kings' courts inheritance. He had a vague understanding of the Tao merge, but he wasn't prepared for anything. He needed the opportunities in this place to help him reach his limits and reach the Tao merge. In ancient times, the three kings' courts were a peak force, not much weaker than the Qixin Temple. Anyone daring to challenge the Qixin Temple wouldn't be an ordinary powerhouse. Advancing on both paths, Jian Wushuang continuously surpassed others. On the path of soul cultivation, he even caught up with Zhen Wuyang. As they passed each other, they merely nodded without much conversation. Since their identities had been recognized, there was no need for concealment. Looking at Jian Wushuang's figure, Zhen Wuyang felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart. The Yen Immortal he had once banished to the great desolate wilderness had now grown to such an extent. In the comprehension of soul cultivation secrets, Jian Wushuang had even surpassed him. The rankings on the wall suddenly changed. Emperor Tianshan was shifted away. Jian Wushuang was also somewhat surprised. He had thought he could continue progressing as long as he had time, but now it seemed he had misunderstood. There were still requirements. Emperor Tianshan was on the transformation Tao but unexpectedly got shifted away. It was unlikely he reached the end, mainly due to the prolonged time and insufficient comprehension, leading to his displacement. Jian Wushuang on both paths began to shorten their time, seeking faster speeds, especially on the Soul Tao. With each level ascended, he gained substantial insights, and losing that progress through displacement would be a significant setback. Soon enough, another individual was shifted away. All the Tier 6 emperors from the Turtle Spirit Island, except for the Island Lord, were moved. Following them were some Tier 5 emperors from the Elder Palace. On the Soul Tao staircase, Jian Wushuang had climbed 20,000 steps. On the Transformation Tao, he had covered 8,000 steps. Yet, there was still no sign of Broly. It seemed he had already finished. Mastering the Transformation Tao made traversing 10,000 steps relatively easy for Jian Wushuang. Considering his expertise in manipulating all things, Broly, who specialized in transformation, would find it even more straightforward. The crucial aspect remained the Soul Tao. After climbing 20,000 steps, Jian Wushuang finally caught sight of the figures of Hu Qing and Jiang Shang from behind. The two walked side by side. Step by step, the steps were very steady. It was obvious that he had not reached his limit. Judging by the position, he should be around the 27th step. Currently, Jian Wushuang had not seen Tongtian Buddha yet. The other party has likely passed the 30,000th step. The Transformation Tao had 10,000 steps, and Jian Wushuang was unsure about the number of steps in the Soul Tao. At the very least, he did not even see the first place. Jian Wushuang was surprised that Tongtian Buddha could surpass them by so much. If Jian Wushuang knew about the inheritance of Tongtian Buddha, he would not think so. This was also why Zhen Wuyang and Qishui didn't care. Tongtian Buddha, on the Grave God Mountain, obtained a secret method inheritance of the universe. His soul had already been elevated, and his soul imprint had even been embedded in the origin source of the Universe Master, experiencing the might of the Universe Master. This kind of opportunity naturally benefited Tongtian Buddha immensely, surpassing Zhen Wuyang and others in one go. This time, he was one of the most competitive individuals. As for Broly, there was no need to mention. The Transformation Tao, a special origin source Tao rarer than the ultimate Tao, reaching the Third King's Court was a tremendous stroke of luck. He was the emperor with the most hope to inherit the title of the Transformation Tao King, without a doubt. Jian Wushuang had little hope of competing with him. Others had even less hope. In the path of the soul, Tongtian Buddha was the #1 seed. The remaining were Hu Qing and Jiang Shang. Looking at the backs of the two, Jian Wushuang suddenly felt an inexplicable attraction from Jiang Shang. Very powerful. That power did not seem to belong to her. He remembered this person. Back at the blood sacrifice in the chaotic domain, he had seen her once. Unexpectedly, she had become an emperor now. Back then, she was just an ordinary person. How many years had passed? It was only a few thousand years, crossing from an ordinary person to an emperor. This was somewhat exaggerated. Back then, he had been comparable to a Tier 3 emperor. Now, he was comparable to a peak-level Tier 4. With all his techniques, he could fight a Tier 5 imperial emperor. However, compared to the other party, it did not seem to be much heaven-defying. In a few thousand years, this girl had advanced from a mortal to an emperor. He had never even heard of it. The reason why he was able to cross so many levels was because of the power of the extreme Tao. He had comprehended the space origin source in advance and had gone a long way. Secondly, it was because of the beast god weapon and the heavenly demon technique. This allowed his divine body to reach the limits of a Tao lord, allowing him to fight against a Tier 5 emperor. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to defy the natural order and engage in battle with a Tier 5 emperor. Swish! Jian Wushuang furrowed his brows slightly, realizing that Shen Wuyang had somehow caught up to him again. Originally, the two of them hadn't opened much of a gap, maintaining a difference of around 200 steps. Now, the disparity was less than 10 steps. He dared not think too much, delving into the profound insights of his secret technique and advancing with all his might. Immersed in it, time flowed even faster. In the blink of an eye, 100,000 years had passed. Since they entered the Three Kings' Court, 100,000 years had elapsed. At the 50,000-year mark, Broly was the first to complete the transformation Tao, traversing 10,000 steps. Just 10,000 years later, Jian Wushuang also finished 10,000 steps. However, when he reached the end, there was no one behind him. They had all been teleported away. After completing the 10,000 steps, the summit looked different from what he had imagined. The summit. There was only an ethereal staircase, and on top, someone was seated cross-legged. When Jian Wushuang looked towards the figure, he saw a woman, but in the blink of an eye, she transformed into an old man. The person's appearance changed with his thoughts. Whatever appearance he wanted would manifest, and he even saw the person as Xianxia. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang snapped out of it, finding no one on the stairs. Clap! He took a step forward, entering the 10,001st step. All things transformation. In this level, he experienced what it meant to defy the heavens. After ascending the 10,000 steps, he felt that he had already grasped the essence of transformation. However, upon stepping into this level, he realized that the previous 10,000 steps were all in vain. The eternal transformation secret technique, at this moment, stepped into its utmost limit. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. His entire aura changed, and he roared, "Eternal transformation! Hum!" All his treasures converged on this body. The power of the beast god weapon erupted. The candle dragon wings unfolded, and he slightly lifted his arm. Jian Wushuang clenched his fist, and the dark red skin of the candle dragon's arm burst. Eternal transformation amplified the origin source. His origin source was already formidable, and this amplification made even his divine body struggle to support it. Urgently, he activated the beast god weapon's divine body to more than 30,000-fold, barely sustaining it. Now his origin source contained the power of half a black hole. Countless stars surrounded his body. More than 30,000-fold were needed to support the origin source. It's worth noting that the divine body of a Tier 5 emperor was only a little over 30,000-fold, enough to easily support the origin source. His divine body over 30,000-fold would burst even a Tao Lord's divine body, but that was fine. The stronger, the better. No one would complain that a secret technique was too powerful. If someone did, it meant that the opponent was too weak to withstand the secret technique. He hadn't even used the heavenly demon technique yet. Once he did, he could reach a divine body of over 40,000-fold, enough for him to use the eternal transformation. Originally thought to be difficult to cultivate, unexpectedly, upon reaching this level, he could directly enter the lesser Mahayana realm and refine the eternal transformation. Reached the lesser Mahayana realm. Swoosh! Before he could react, his figure disappeared from the steps, being teleported away. He cleared the transformation Tao path. In the blink of an eye, he found himself in a brightly lit hall. Many people had gathered here at this moment. The only familiar face was Emperor Wanxing. The others included those Tier 5 emperors who couldn't pass the chess game, and of course the Tier 6 emperors from Turtle Spirit Island. Qishui. Wanderer Qishui was also here. Jian Wushuang had now restored his true appearance. Regardless, he was still someone from the East Universe, so he had to greet them. It's been a long time since we last met. I heard that you encountered difficulties in the heavenly realm. I thought. After exchanging pleasantries, Jian Wushuang chatted with Emperor Wanxing about the Grave God Mountain. They then turned their attention to the Grand Hall. These individuals had arrived tens of thousands of years before him, and their knowledge surpassed his own by a considerable margin. However, some people remained in meditation within the hall, paying no attention to his arrival. Wanxing smiled faintly. Wushuang, it's not as complicated as we might think. Take a look at the murals on the walls. Jian Wushuang wasn't a fool. With just one glance, he understood. The depictions were crystal clear. In a secret realm, the Three Kings' Court captured a giant egg. Rather than saying they captured it, it was more accurate to say that a colossal egg descended from the heavens into a secret realm under the influence of the Three Kings' Court. Within the secret realm, there was a team of heavenly lords led by what seemed to be a Tier 6 emperor. Jian Wushuang could sense the aura on the person. That person was at least a peak-level Tier 6 powerhouse. Leading a team of 10 individuals, each of them was a peak-level Tier 5 emperor. This elite squad, upon encountering the egg for the first time, was unexpectedly suppressed by the secret law on the egg's surface. Their deaths were inexplicable. Fortunately, in ancient times, most powerful individuals used avatars when traveling. At that time, with sufficient treasures and time, they nurtured avatars over several epochs, investing numerous treasures to create avatars comparable to their true selves. So, a few of them did not perish but lost their avatars. They promptly reported this news to the higher-ups. Initially, the Universe Master in charge did not pay much attention. Instead, he dispatched a Supreme Peak powerhouse to investigate. However, this move triggered a catastrophe. The first mural was done. Wanxing then pointed to another painting, urging Jian Wushuang to continue looking. In the second mural, a massive eye was depicted. It leaked out from the eggshell. A Supreme Peak powerhouse shattered the eggshell, revealing the eye. Although the Supreme Peak powerhouse suppressed it, they couldn't deliver a fatal blow. Then, the Universe Master personally took action. He brought the giant egg into the Three Kings' Court. Originally, it seemed like good luck to obtain a beast egg and attempt to forcefully hatch it using treasures. But it turned out to be counterproductive. Not only did the giant egg fail to hatch, but the exotic beast within nearly perished. In the moment of the beast's weakness, a piece of news spread. This piece of news reached the vast expanse of the starry sky. It attracted the descent of a formidable being. Even the Universe Master suffered a backlash, losing control under the rule force on the eggshell and inexplicably started slaughtering his subordinates. This scene prompted the appearance of kings from the Three Kings' Courts. The king whom Jian Wushuang had encountered before, or rather, anyone who entered this place had encountered. He was the disheveled chessboard old man with dark red skin. His descent suppressed the Universe Master. Unfortunately, that time countless heavenly lords fell. Under a Universe Master, there were countless individuals. Apart from the heavenly lords, there were also Tao lords. The fall of billions caused ripples in the river of time and space. In a corner of the mural, a venerable old man with curved horns on his head was revealed, with the character Qi embroidered on his robe. It was the dominance of Qishan, the power of Qishan Temple. The old man with curved horns, representing Qishan Temple, was also intervening. Jian Wushuang was curious about the giant egg. This time, without waiting for Wanxing to speak, he looked at the third mural. The third painting did not depict the giant egg but rather the collision with the old man with curved horns. The old man with curved horns seemed to be entangled with something, showing hesitation in dealing with the Three Kings' Courts. However, it was evident that the three royal courts were wary of the old man with curved horns. In ancient times, the three divine masters of Qishan Temple could handle the Three Kings' Courts. There were strong and weak Universe Masters. Strong ones, like Qixin, could dominate the entire Moro spacetime alone. There were also weak ones, like the Universe Master disrupted by the giant egg in the second mural, obviously struggling within the same tier. Yet, Jian Wushuang was unaware of the power divisions among the Universe Masters and couldn't determine the extent of the power gap. The old man with curved horns in the mural eventually retreated, and the three kings' courts began to study the giant egg. However, what followed was the arrival of a terrifying powerhouse. Just as they placed the giant egg in the three kings' court, a visitor from the stars arrived. It was Fugo, leading a vast army, or perhaps he alone constituted an army of cultivators. Countless twisted crawlers separated from his body, assaulting the three kings' court with force. At this moment, the old man with curved horns appeared again, but this time he stayed in the corner of the mural, not stepping forward. Fugo attacked the three kings' court, devastating everything in his path, unstoppable. He continued until he stood before the three kings. Those skeletal figures seen by outsiders were actually part of Fuego's body. If he could see the external scene now, he would be even more convinced. Because Fuego, by devouring those skeletons, was growing stronger. The true form of Shang, initially able to contend with him, had now fallen to a lower state. The outside world was in chaos. The Earth realm erupted into an unprecedented chaotic battle. The southern chaotic domain collapsed, and countless powerful beings perished. At this moment, the Kuei organization unleashed a great war. This step was the result of billions of years of planning by Xinling. In the hall, the more Jian Wushuang looked back, the more shocked he became. The three kings sacrificed themselves, yet Fuego, unstoppable until the end, was killed by the old man with curved horns. The giant egg also hatched completely, but it was previously damaged at its foundation, possessing only half the strength of a Universe Master at birth, yet its realm was that of a Universe Master. This already rivaled those innate divine beasts, born as Universe Masters, incredibly powerful. What hatched from the giant egg was a dark golden dragon. Without Fuego's protection, the old man with curved horns easily suppressed it. The final scene was a picture of ruins. Among them were Zhen Wuyang, Tongtian Buddha, Qishui, and even Situ Nan and Island Lord Guiling. Jian Wushuang was utterly shocked. This was a mural predicting the future. Apart from these people, he also saw three faceless individuals, even their gender indistinguishable. Who did these three represent? Jian Wushuang pondered carefully. Then he thought of himself. He did not see himself. There were also Hu Qing and that person, Jiang Shang. Without the three of them, these three faceless individuals should be them. However, why they had no faces, Jian Wushuang couldn't fathom. After finishing viewing the mural, he couldn't calm his emotions for a long time. This scene was no different from the others. Brother Wushuang, you, Hu Qing, and that girl Jiang Shang haven't shown up. I think this opportunity is related to you three. The three king courts happen to have three kings. Wan Xing pointed to the three faceless figures above, feeling a bit emotional. He practiced the myriad Dao, naturally having a connection with the transformation Dao. Although he chose the transformation Dao in terms of innate talent, he couldn't compare to Jian Wushuang and Broly. Now, he was only at the peak level of Tier 4 and had long lost the arrogance he once had. In the years on the Grave God Mountain, Jian Wushuang had encountered many Dao lords stronger than him. Even in the non-ultimate Dao, he couldn't rank in the top 10. In comparison to the ultimate Dao, he couldn't even enter the top 500. Even the weakest ultimate Dao, when the Dao merged at the 7th level, would bring about a strength comparable to his. Facing Wan Xing's desolation, Jian Wushuang patted his shoulder and said firmly, "It's not that simple. The more uncertain things are, the less likely strong individuals will entrust them to others." This statement held truth. Who would pass on their inheritance to someone who saw through everything? Jian Wushuang felt that the most likely to receive the inheritance was Broly. In the mural, Broly appeared savage, like a wild beast. He resembled the King of Transformation Dao in many ways. The King of Transformation Dao was depicted as a mountain with numerous tentacles wriggling above, sitting on the throne at the summit. He looked similar to Broly, especially the eyes, both resembling white wax. Turning his gaze to Broly sitting cross-legged in the corner, Jian Wushuang revealed a wary look. The power emanating from him seemed ancient and inviolable. Having not chatted with Wan Xing for long, although they were acquaintances, they didn't have much connection. They merely discussed a bit. Jian Wushuang observed that Wan Xing, the once formidable heavenly emperor, now seemed somewhat worldly, lacking the ruthless decisiveness of the past, and even exuding a sense of twilight. This was not good. Displaying such behavior at the peak level Tier 4 was not promising for the difficult road ahead. If this was his performance at the peak level Tier 4, reaching Tier 5 would likely be even more challenging. However, everyone's journey was different. Take Hu Qing, for instance, advancing to the Grand Yen Immortal in one step, then achieving the perfected 9 revolutions in the original planet. Now, Hu Qing became an emperor after 5 steps, reaching the peak level of Tier 5, directly rivaling Tier 6 peak level emperors. This was equivalent to matching Tier 6 emperors with intact origin sources. It seemed that Hu Qing's current cultivation realm could almost compare to Situ Nan, and their combat strength was not far apart. Among the experts on the Tao of Transformation, besides him and Broly, the others were driven out halfway. As for those in the Soul Tao, most were still progressing, making many regret their choice. Nevertheless, the ability to increase real combat power was far superior to the mysteries of the Soul Tao. Emperor Tianchan, originally just a top-level Tier 6, could now reach the peak-level Tier 6 with the display of the Eternal Transformation Pavilion, putting him on par with the Turtle Spirit Island Lord. This was a qualitative change. Island Lord Guiling, who chose the Soul Tao, had no change in strength after coming out but had improved in realm. One relied on transformation to compensate for the flawed origin source, while the other repaired the origin source with soul power. In Jian Wushuang's view, their choices were not wrong. Emperor Tianchan's strength was limited in the Soul Tao. Not only did he fail to advance far, but he also couldn't repair his origin source, risking ultimate failure. It was more secure to follow the transformation Tao. As for Guiling, originally a peak-level Tier 6, walking the transformation Tao would lead to the peak of the minor Mahayana realm. His strength would, at most, reach the level of Situ Nan. However, if he chose the Soul Tao, there was hope for him to repair his origin source and ascend to the supreme peak level, even if that hope was slight. It was not something to be abandoned. This was the tenacity of cultivators. Never give up, never abandon. Jian Wushuang was no different. In the Soul Tao, several individuals were still advancing. Leading the way was still Tongtian Buddha. Jian Wushuang was catching up to Hu Qing but couldn't yet see Tongtian Buddha's figure. They had now ascended 60,000 steps. The estimate was 100,000 steps. Jian Wushuang could now see 30,000 steps ahead. In the rear 30,000 steps, Zhen Wuyang, Situ Nan, Island Lord Guiling, and even Gong Miaoi were still persisting. Now only 8 of them remained. Zhen Wuyang, originally in the top 2, was surpassed by Hu Qing and Zhang Shang, then later surpassed them, currently ranking 4th. For some reason, Hu Qing and Zhang Shang were counted as one person, a mystery to Jian Wushuang. Hu Qing was only about 100 steps ahead. Walking at the forefront, Hu Qing could turn around and see Jian Wushuang. Although they couldn't speak in the space above, they nodded at each other from a distance. Ding! Powerful beings on the Soul Tao began disappearing in succession, from Gong Miaoi to Guiling and Situ Nan. In the forefront, Tongtian Buddha had reached the peak. The Soul Tao staircase began shattering from the first step. Zhen Wuyang was now the last, and the people behind him had all been teleported away. Everyone began striving forward. Entering the hall after teleportation, Jian Wushuang saw Tongtian Buddha being teleported in, indicating that he had completed the entire journey. He also saw Gong Miaoi. Jian Wushuang, Gong Miaoi murmured, bowing her head. She had never expected Jian Wushuang to be an inheritor. Watching Jian Wushuang converse with Tongtian Buddha clarified his true identity. However, why Jian Wushuang was associating with the people from the Kuei organization was unknown to everyone. Still, being intelligent, no one took the initiative to expose it. No need to be polite. I heard from Lord Wuxia that you were in trouble, and it was the negligence of our elder palace. There's no need to dwell on it. Situ Nan did not shun Jian Wushuang just because of his association with the Kuei organization. Jinling didn't care. Did he really need to speculate on it? Then, Situ Nan's tone changed, and he handed a jade slip to Jian Wushuang, speaking gently, "This is given to you by Lord Jinling." Jian Wushuang was delighted and quickly took the jade slip. However, upon reading its contents, he felt a bit bitter. It was a brief message. If he wanted to go to the Grave God Mountain, he had to find his own way. Was this a form of redemption? Jian Wushuang sighed. Despite the somewhat disappointing message, knowing the other party's stance eased his mind. Being able to be sheltered here was already good enough. However, going to the Grave God Mountain without the strength of the Supreme Peak was practically impossible. Even as an inheritor, the Guardian wouldn't let him pass, let alone the powerful special life forms there. Without merging with the Tao, he had no chance of reaching the Grave God Mountain. In the jade slip, there was also a simple inheritance. Upon seeing it, Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief. The record above detailed the experience of merging with the ultimate Tao, a lifeline given to him. It was a kind of care, considering his situation. But he should have gone to the Grave God Mountain originally. Being captured by Junwang was something he was forced into. Alas, thinking about it now was futile. Lord Jinling had spoken, and he could only obediently follow. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. About 10 years passed, and everyone was transported to this place. Jian Wushuang finally met Hu Qing. In fact, they had met many times before, but they never had the chance to recognize each other. Bro the Wushuang. Hu Qing's eyes sparkled. Jian Wushuang was also delighted. Within the Qixin Temple, Hu Qing was the only person with whom he had a deep bond, and someone he could completely trust. It's been so many years. In the blink of an eye, nearly 10,000 years had passed. The two set up a barrier and began discussing their experiences over the years. Jian Wushuang's own affairs were hard to articulate. He could only be vague about them. Hu Qing understood that these years had not been easy for him and didn't inquire further. Instead, he learned some things about the Grave God Mountain from Hu Qing. On the Grave God Mountain, the situation was as harsh as on the original planet. On the original planet, even Tao Lords found it difficult to fall. But on the Grave God Mountain, in these years, many Tao Lords of the ultimate Tao had fallen. Comfortable environments existed everywhere, but it all depended on strength. Emperors with formidable power, like Shang, had no threats within the Qixin Temple. They had all gone to the River of Time. They even explored the River of Time thoroughly, slaughtering countless chaos beasts of the Tier 6 and even Supreme Peak level. They traversed this River of Time almost completely. After all, it wasn't as powerful as the ancient Moro Time, which was much stronger than their River of Time. In the current River of Time, the number of Tier 6 emperors was not even comparable to the natives of the 4 great secret realms. However, the quality was considerably higher. In the River of Time, there were numerous universes. Many powerful beings were born, and there were many 1 Revolution Tier 4 emperors, probably countless times more than in the 4 great secret realms. However, there was almost no difference in the number of Tier 4 emperors, and Tier 6 emperors were even fewer than in the 4 great secret realms. Now, from Jian Wushuang's perspective, there were probably over 10,000 Tier 6 emperors in Tiannan of the Earth realm alone. Kingdoms like Great Xia had at least a few thousand. Adding in some solitary Tier 6 emperors, the conservative estimate surpassed 10,000. Hu Qing's expression paused as she recalled something. He quickly introduced, "Brother Wushuang. This is my disciple, Jiang Shang." The junior Jiang Shang pays respects to senior Wushuang. Jiang Shang revealed a faint smile, but deep down, she remained cautious of Jian Wushuang. She always felt a certain evil aura from him, similar to the one who killed her brother. Although Jian Wushuang had known this already, he still showed a surprised expression. The former novice monk now had a disciple, and both master and disciple were peak-level Tier 5 emperors. For their first meeting, Jian Wushuang took out a treasure from his mustard seed, a soul-sealing jade, as a gift. He obtained this treasure by killing the Mo Luo Crown Prince, making it a rare and valuable item. The other party might not necessarily appreciate it, but the intention was there. Handing over the soul-sealing jade to Xianxia, Jian Wushuang lightly smiled. Now that both master and disciple are emperors, don't look down on it. After receiving the soul-sealing jade, Xianxia thanked him and remained silent. Soon Zhen Wuyang also approached. Hu Qing quickly dispelled the barrier. Jian Wushuang, Zhen Wuyang, without his former imposing aura, now appeared gentle. Seeing him, Jian Wushuang quickly bowed, respectfully saying, "Greetings, Emperor. No need for formalities. Our statuses are the same now. No need for such courtesy." They talked about many things, mentioning the princes and Prince Yen. However, they all fell. Qishan Temple looted all the powerful beings in the Yen Immortal realm and then carried out a brutal selection process. None of the Yen Immortal experts within the Great Sea region managed to enter the Grave God Mountain. The farthest they reached was the original planet, where they perished at the hands of the devouring demons. Some retired and returned to the Great Sea region, informing Zhen Wuyang's avatar about the situation. At this moment, they had undergone significant changes. Facing those extremely familiar individuals, even though they perished, there was no sense of sadness, especially Zhen Wuyang. Clearly, his children perished, yet he showed no regret. In their eyes, those selected were the strong, and those who perished were the weak. There was nothing to regret. Adhering to the strong is the way of kings, as well as the path of dominance. Looking forward is everything. Jian Wushuang himself emerged from the mundane and committed his fair share of foolish deeds. He once gave up everything for a soulmate, only to find it turned into a fleeting dream upon reflection. It might be better to turn all past experiences into a thread, suspended in the air. The two briefly discussed some of their past experiences, but the majority of their conversation revolved around the murals in this place. Anyone who had seen the murals couldn't help but be shocked. It was predicting the future. If it was a short-term prediction, it wouldn't be a big deal. Having Jian Wushuang predict the fate of a mortal was almost a sure thing. But predicting the destiny of an emperor was a different story. Even if he was an emperor himself, he couldn't discern it. Especially predicting from ancient times to the present. This was simply unimaginable. On Grave God Mountain, they had never heard of such a thing. However, on the murals in this place, their appearances were depicted. They had once suspected whether the scenes appeared only when they entered. However, 3 individuals had no discernible features or auras. If the changes occurred when they arrived, why didn't it reveal the faces of Jian Wushuang, Hu Qing, and Xianxia? If it were true, it would be terrifying. Zhen Wuyang and the others originally intended to communicate with Zhenling, but found that they couldn't establish contact with the outside world from this place. Just as everyone was puzzled, Jian Wushuang always felt something was amiss. Where did Zhishan, the first to enter the Three Kings' Court, go? From the moment they entered until now, there was no sign of him. If a few people disappeared, it would be understandable, but he was the only one who vanished. The first to enter, gone. While others hadn't paid much attention, Jian Wushuang became alert. Emperors of Tier 5 could enter here. Zhishan's strength shouldn't be insufficient to enter. Could it be that there's something strange here? Just then, the hall trembled. Everyone looked up, and the sight nearly scared them out of their wits. Tier 6 emperors and even ultimate emperors felt a chill down their spines. Above their heads, dozens of corpses were suspended. In normal circumstances, corpses were nothing to be feared, especially not by these powerhouses. But upon closer inspection, these corpses were none other than their own physical bodies. Boom! Jian Wushuang's scalp tingled, quickly stepping back and then looking down at his own arm. His other avatar had shattered long before entering the Soul Dao, broken early on to avoid detection by others. Now, in his true form with all treasures on him, he raised one arm, bursting through the sleeve and revealing the candle dragon arm. It was all real. Yet, his physical body was suspended above, appearing as a clearly defined corpse with a grayish complexion. Everyone present was shocked. Could they have fallen? That was impossible. Jian Wushuang took in a sharp breath. Others were even more drenched in sweat on their foreheads. Emperor Tianshan couldn't accept it. He exploded directly, attacking a Tier 5 Emperor from the Elder Palace. In an unguarded moment, he smashed the opponent's head with a palm, instantly sending blood mist into the air.